My bad. I forgot to turn the mic on. Sorry, Mackenzie. Should be able to hear me now. Say yes if you can. Yep. My bad. I forgot to turn the mic on. Sorry, Mackenzie. Oh, should be able to hear me now. Say yes if you can. All right. What did we do? Like 3 hours last time? Hopefully, we won't do that. Um, but you guys were really active in the chat, so that was cool. So I'm fine with it. But let's get it started. Mason jar. Oh yeah, my drink. I gotta get my drink on with the mason jar. All right. Yeah, it's old school. Old school. All right. What's up, everybody? We are doing my Sega Saturn collection live. Um, I'm pretty sure I'm missing some games here, which makes sense because I remember I was rummaging around in my storage before and I found like 10 Wii games. So I'm pretty sure there's more in there. I should have about 80 or so. I think the last time I checked, I had like 83 or something around there. Um, so you'll see 71, I think I have here. So 70 plus. But I know I'm missing a couple. Well, 12 or so. But I'm going to have to grab them when I go back to the storage. I haven't been to the unit in a while. Crazy enough, somebody actually broke into my unit thinking it was theirs. They thought they lost their key or some garbage. So hopefully nothing's missing out of there because I haven't looked since I was told that. But the management knows who that person is. So if there's anything missing, we'll have to exchange some words, and you're gonna give my stuff back. But anyway, let's start with the hardware. Hardware. All right, so let's start with the console itself, right? So I had um, 4 Sega Saturns before. I ended up giving one to a nephew and one to a friend. So now I have 2. I have one hooked up, and I have one in the box, which is this beautiful box right here. Can you see it? Yeah, there you go. That's what it looks like. This is, I want to say this is the second run. This has the video game sampler. So you have a disc with a bunch of different games on it, or demos anyway of different games, and all that good stuff. So let's get a look at the peripherals here. You can see them. All right, so you're not going to be able to see me while I'm doing this, but oh well. This is going to be tough. So that's the controller. That's the arcade stick, steering wheel, the zapper-like gun. Oh god, it's blowing out. Too much light. See if my camera can adjust. There we go. Memory card, modem, yes, modem, and the kind of not fight stick but flight stick. So for flight simulators and mech games, really good for those. Actually, I wanted to show you the console itself. So there was another version that came out after this. That one had 3 free games in it, which were Virtua Fighter 2, Virtua Cop 2, and Daytona USA. And that's when the writing was on the wall with the Saturn. and it wasn't going to do well. What's up, Jonathan? Afro Power. You got a modded Rhea Phoebe Saturns? No, I don't know what that is. Let's see. So this one is in still really great condition. I've never used it, so really nice. Let me move this to the other side here. All right, so there you go. You got your reset button. There's your eject button. There's your disc tray, obviously, and your power button there. And on the back is your memory battery. So you have a battery for memory. It's right there. They last about a year. So you have clock and game saves are stored in that battery. And not very reliable. Like I said, after a year, they're dead, basically. And let's close that back. This is the communication connector here, and the AV out looks like a SD digital out. So I always loved the way this console was designed. I remember the first time I saw it, I thought you can put Sega Saturn games, or Sega Genesis games in here, but no, that's not what this slot is for. It should have been. It would have helped this system sell a lot more. I think Sega US wanted them to do that, but Sega Japan would not agree to it, so bummer. Like I said, this is for memory cards. Speaking of which, this is your memory card right there. Some of these, well, only for memory. Some of these gave you RAM expansion, which you'll see later. And some of these gave you the option for cheats, like the action replay. So you can store cheats, you can save, and have RAM expansion. So a lot of options there. And you just put it in there. Right there. Lovely. And it just stays. It's perfect. Love this console. Always loved the design of the Sega Saturn. Very, sleek and nice looking. Very much like a console. You have your 2 controller ports. And it didn't come with, but you can get a multi-tap. Just like the PlayStation had. So let's put that to the side. And I don't have all the peripherals. I only have a few. But definitely had to have this bad boy. This is the fight stick. This is the one that Sega made internally. It's very good. Good weight. The buttons are very nice. I mean, very nice. And you have programmable buttons here. Joystick is great. Good size. Could have been maybe a little heavier, but this is still pretty good. This is the one I use pretty much all the time when I'm playing fighting games, which you'll see a lot of later. So yeah, there's that. Oh. All right, so we have this clip stick. I've never used this. It's been in the box. I just kind of keep it in the box. So, it's another fight stick. Has slow motion controls, durable metal base, independent auto fire control, LED display panel, extra long cord, programmable synchro fire buttons, and 8 fire buttons. So there's that if you want to get a look at it. Like I said, I've never even taken this out of the box, so it's very dusty. All that good stuff. There it is. This is the first time I actually pulled it out. So there you go. A little smaller, a little bit more compact. You got that old smelly 1990s dust coming out of here. Which is great. Basement and all those good smells. Put that back in there. I'm sure it's not going to go in. Let's see. Let's See if it goes back in with no trouble. Gotta love the Astro Arcade, says Retrofaction. Visor Grunt, they needed that fight stick for Capcom games. Oh yeah. And I have some good Capcom games. Uh-oh. Something's on the bottom getting in the way. Gaming for years. What's up, T? Love the channel. Thank you. Gaming for years. Thank you for joining. Thank everybody for joining, if I didn't say that already. I know my channel is more of a Nintendo channel, but obviously you guys know I'm a bit of a collector, so I have a ton of stuff. And I like doing these types of videos to show gaming history. So, getting down to the last couple peripherals here. This is the NetLink. I have not opened this because I've never used it, and I can't really in this day and age. And you can see where it goes. It goes in the cartridge slot. And this is for online play. You could also do mail. It had mail. Let's see what else it has on the back here. Planet OS custom 3D city link, NetLink City, custom NetLink web browser. So it had a web browser. Let's see if you can get a look at that web browser. That's old school right there. Look at that. Look at that stuff. Look at that. That's history, gaming history. So a lot of people think that the Dreamcast was the first console with a modem, but it didn't come with it. Dreamcast was the first console that shipped with the built-in modem, but you can get a modem obviously for this. 56K dial-up, and you can do online stuff with that. So there's that. I keep that just for the collection. Obviously, I can't use it. But funny enough, you can actually use Dreamcast online. People have private servers set up, and you can use your modem, and then you have to put some kind of attachment to it, and you can go online with like Phantasy Star and a lot of the online games still to this day. That's really cool on Dreamcast. There's a cool community there. So, before I get further, I'll only have the controllers left to show as far as the hardware. So, just picked up a Sega Saturn last year. I already got about 20 games for it. Good for you, Nintendo guy. What up, T? Says Jonathan Reed. What's up? What's up? Let's see. Yeah, Sega love being stupid. Saturn being able to play Gen MG would be godly. Oh yeah, Master System games and be godly and make sense. Yeah, they should have done it, and they thought about doing it obviously, but they couldn't get approval from Sega of Japan. So they often clash. Sega Japan and Sega US were often clashing and fighting for power. It was a power struggle, and it just hurt the company overall. Mackenzie Peters, it would have been a good idea if Sega made the Saturn able to play 32X games, so 32X owners wouldn't get burned. That's true. That would have been nice as well. I just think it should have had a slot for all of them, because they came out with the 32... What was it called? The Sega 32X CD or CDX. That's what it was. The Sega CDX, and it was it looked like an old school like compact disc player, and it had a cartridge slot in the back, and you can put Genesis and 32X games in that slot, and the CD. Obviously, you can play Sega CD games, and it was all in one. And they're pretty rare now, and from what I've heard, the lens on them they don't last very long. They're pretty shoddy. You got to get them replaced. But I don't know why they didn't just make that the Saturn. Give those slots to the Saturn and make it be able to play Sega CD and Sega Saturn games. This system, Sega would still be making consoles right now had they done that. But hindsight is 2020. But if I was around, I would have told them, yeah, do that. So that way I have all this software I can bring over to my Saturn. They weren't smart about it. So Visor Grunt, they needed to fight stick. Yeah, I read that already. Capcom Fighters, read that. Saturn has Capcom Fighters that still haven't seen the light of day on Nintendo consoles. That is true. Glad I made it to this stream. Love the Saturn. Says gaming for years. Likewise, I'm glad you made it. I know Duke Nukem worked with the modem on the Saturn. Yeah, it did. The CDX are very cool, but very expensive. Yeah, they're very expensive, very rare. And like I said, the lens on them is not very good. They go out pretty regularly. If you find an old one, even if you find a used one, the lens is probably bad or on its way out. So I don't remember hearing about the Sega Neptune. I don't remember if that was Game Pro. No, actually, the Sega Neptune was a thing, and I think the Sega Neptune was what I was just talking about, adding 32X, adding Sega CD, and that's what the Neptune was supposed to be. That was actually the name. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So personally, I think the Sega should have canceled the 32X and moved those 32X games in development to the Saturn. 32X was something that was pushed by because Sega of America wanted to keep going with the Saturn or the Genesis. They believed it, had longer legs and wanted to keep extending the legs of it. And instead of just saying no, we're gonna cut this stuff off and go to the Saturn. But like I said, hindsight's 2020. All right, now controllers. What am I stuck on here? All right, so here is the Sega Saturn standard controller. I love this controller. It's one of my favorite 2D controllers. It's my only issue with it. It's a little light. It's very light. But the buttons are very clicky, very nice. The shoulder buttons are nice and clicky as well. The first version of this controller was actually not very cool, not very good. The D-pad really sucked on that one. This one is a very nice D-pad, actually, pretty decent. And also the shoulder buttons, they barely moved when you hit them. It was like you didn't even know if you were registering them or not. So this is much better. This was the original Japanese controller, but for whatever reason, Sega of America thought they needed to change the controller. Everybody hated it, and so they went back to the Japanese controller, which is this one. Obviously, the Japanese Sega Saturn was like an off-white, so kind of a creamish color. I like that one, but I like the black one better, obviously. And the controller as well was kind of an off-white cream color. I don't have any of those to show you, so. All right. I don't have it. Where is it? Come on. I pulled it out. I remember using it. Let's see. So that. At the bottom of that. And. All right, there we go. This is it. All right. So. Oh, it's right here. This is the 3D controller. I'm all tangled up here now. Let's untangle myself. All right. So this is the 3D controller. And this, depending on who you are or where you were, we knew about the N64 controller beforehand, the 3D controller and all that, thumbstick. We knew what it looked like. We knew how it functioned. By the time Sega announced this, I believe this came to market first, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know about, maybe in Japan it did. I'm sure in North America it did not. But in Japan, I believe this came to market before Nintendo's 3D controller. But we didn't know about this. This kind of came out after Nintendo's controller. And Sega was the Saturn was supposed to be a 2D powerhouse, and it is. It still is. It focused on 2D, but it wasn't until Sony showed what they were going to do, make a 3D console with the PSX, original PlayStation. Sega went back to the drawing board and added 3D capability. Actually added a separate chip to the console, which is why it was so hard to program for. It was a separate CPU. That's why it made it tough to program for this thing. But so technically, Sega's 3D controller hit the market first, but Nintendo's 3D controller was the first that was announced. And I'm sure Sega saw it and scrambled and made this. But I love this controller. I wish the Dreamcast would have went with this form factor, the shape. The Dreamcast is more kind of inwards down on this part, and that's what makes my hands hurt after a while. This fits in your hand and sits lovely, and all the buttons you can reach without problems. And I like this. The stick it's a little kind of, it kind of jumps back. But I mean, that's good. I think the thumb, where you rest your thumb is not the best. But this is a really good controller, and they made this specifically for Nights into Dreams, which is, I'll show you the CD, the demo disc that came with the Sega Saturn I just showed you. So you got to play the demo, and I think it basically puts you through the first level for each story. There's a boy story and a girl story, and love this game. I'll talk about this a little later. Put that over there. But yeah, for whatever reason though, you could take the cord off. Nothing else went in there. It looks like, yeah, it has electronic. Obviously, it has electronic leads in there, but they never did anything with it. Maybe they were thinking of doing something wireless with this, where you could have a wireless dongle in here and then one into your Saturn. But they never did anything with it. But yeah, it detaches for whatever reasons. I don't know. Strange. And I have 4 of these controllers. I have 2 right here. These are actually pretty, not pricey, but I think they're around 45 to 50 bucks or more to find them online. I have 4 of them. All right. So that's that for hardware, and we're going to get into games now. What? Terminator Juice is in here. What up? T-Juice? Let's see. Neptune. Personally, I think, yeah. So Terminator Juice was the next one. The only Saturn controller I used was the analog version with the demo of Nights. Yeah, I mean, the analog stick one is very comfortable. I didn't show you, but at the bottom here, there's a little switch, so you can switch between using 2D controls and 3D controls. You just flick it back and forth whenever you want to do whatever. So, and it worked perfectly. And the buttons are great. It's great for fighting, as you see. Genesis was notoriously not good for fighting games because it only had the 3 buttons, and then they later dropped the 6-button controller, which is what the Saturn. Where did I put it? Which is what the Saturn standard controller basically is, but with shoulder buttons. But I like this one much better. All right. Let's see. Yeah, the Dreamcast L and R triggers are also sharp as hell. Yeah, says Afro Power. Yeah, where's mine? I know I have it close. Yeah. So, and it was also weird because the cord came out of the bottom here, which it kind of had to, I guess, because of this, the VMU and the Rumble, what do they call it, jumper pack. But I wish they would have found a way to put the cord coming out of here, or even here. That would have been better. But you have this weird kind of, it's just a bad design. But just ergonomically, it doesn't feel as good as the 3D controller. This just feels better. It's thicker. It's not all pointy. The trigger buttons are great. Feel great. And they're not as sharp like Apple Power said. So, yeah, let me get this stuff out of the way because I'm going to be putting my games right there as I go through them. So let's go through the games. I have a lot of sports games. So I'm going to do those first because those are the most boring. And they have 0 value. Sports games value don't last for crap. So, Nemesis Beast reviews. This is awesome. My stream? Why? Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, let's get to the games. So first up, we have College Slam. Right there. Is this the first College Slam? I guess it is. Because it just says College Slam. This is very much a NBA Jam type of game. As you can see, $1.99. This actually got given to me, so I didn't pay even that $1.99 for it. But yeah, this is like an NBA Jam, but with college players. Pretty cool. All right. Madden 98. I mean, do I need to tell you anything about that? Madden. Um, hey, those sports games are quite valuable for their cases. Yeah, the cases. Yeah, that's funny you said that, Retrofraction, because there are some games that I don't have cases for. I have loose copies for, but as soon as I can get so what I'm doing is I'm looking for artwork and manuals because that's what the this is gonna see this happens a lot with Sega Saturn games. The little things are so easy to break off, the little hinges, and you end up with this. But I'm gonna try to find manuals for those games that and maybe back artwork for the games that I actually care about, and I'll take and put these sports games as loose, and I'll replace the case for the games that I care about. So that's a thing I'm gonna be looking to do soon. Dusty. NFL Quarterback Club again. This is actually my favorite series during this generation. The Quarterback Club games. I like them more than Madden. I played them more, mostly on N64. But here's Quarterback Club 98. Needs no explanation. You know what that is. Sega Sports. World Series Baseball, Sega Sports. This was a big reason that EA barely supported the Saturn and didn't support the Dreamcast at all. It's because Sega had their own, sports games, and they were really good. And EA didn't like that competition. And EA still doesn't like competition, as we all know. So they didn't support Saturn very much, and they didn't support Dreamcast at all because they didn't like 2K Sports and Sega Sports titles, which were, in my opinion, better. So, Mackenzie Peters, those hinges break so easily. Many Saturn games I find also have missing foam. Yeah, missing foam, broken hinges. This thing is a wreck. But here's World Series Baseball. Wait, this is 2. This is 1. World Series Baseball 1. I was like, wait a minute, do I have a duplicate? And I do have some duplicates, but not that. Let's see. NFL 97. I didn't care for this series or this football game. It felt very Madden like, and like I said, EA didn't like that. But they still hadn't really gone to 3D fields or any of that yet. So hopefully I can do this and have room here. All right, FIFA 96. This is the first FIFA game I've ever played. I don't know if there was ones before this, but as you can see, the EB sticker on there, and it is $2.99. Back then, and I wish I was paying more attention and was in the collector mindset, they were giving these Sega games away, not just the sports games, but all of them. So let's see. Hypnotoad says, "Yay, Sega!" Another Sega fanboy. Those old 3DO, PSX, and Saturn games had those tall cases for no reason. No reason, yeah. Started with the Sega CD. And I'll show you that in my Sega CD collection. I don't have a ton of games there. But NHL Power Play, which is, cool hockey game. It's funny because I wasn't a hockey fan per se, as far as like watching it, but I liked the games. I think it started with Blaze of Steel, and I just kind of kept playing them after that. But I think this one was actually donated from a friend of mine at the time. And again, here we go. Here's my duplicates because one of these I already had and one of these was donated. This one was donated. NHL 97 I bought myself. So there's that. Madden 97. I'm sure this one was donated. Like I said, I didn't play a lot of Madden, so this is probably given to me by my friend. Most of I would say about 60 to 70% of my sports games on Saturn were given to me. All right. Virtual Tennis. This is Virtual Tennis Open, which is basically Acclaim's version of Virtua Tennis, which was pretty popular. As you'll see. Well, as you'll see, I don't think I have Virtual Tennis for Saturn. Actually, I have it for Dreamcast. So yeah, tennis games are always popular. Probably started with Pong, because even if you didn't watch tennis, you got the idea of tennis and how it worked, and it was a pretty fun video game to play. So FIFA was crap until FIFA 98. I can't disagree with that, Adam. So Mackenzie DVD wasn't out yet. People were used to tall cases because of VHS. That is true. That's also another reason. But we did have music CDs, and they had the smaller cases. But as you'll see, only in the U.S. did we use these tall cases. Japan, Sega Japan, used regular CD jewel cases, just like the PlayStation PSX did. So here's Live 98, and I loved Live in this era. Live was my favorite basketball game up until Kobe Bryant on N64. So I loved playing Live. I played Live on my Super Nintendo all the time, and here's the Sega Saturn version. And here is that wonderful, beautiful classic NBA Jam. Everybody knows what NBA Jam is. I don't have to explain this. This was that arcade sports game that kind of started it all. Beautiful. I think this one has Bill Clinton you can unlock, which is great. Great game. Really good on the Sega Saturn. All right. Now, I think that's it for my sports games. I might drop one or two after that, but I think that's it for sports titles. So let us continue. All right. Now, I'm surprised, but I think this is the only puzzle game I have on Sega Saturn, and that is Baku Baku. At least that's how I pronounce it. And Baku Baku is basically like Puyo Puyo. It's that type of puzzle game. Dr. Mario. That kind of. You know what that is. I mean, I don't have to explain that. So, Baku Baku, fun game. If you're into that style of puzzle game. So, all right. I almost picked up Madden again. All right. Robotica, right? Isn't that how you say it? Yeah, Robotica. This is... I bought this game because I looked at the back and I liked the visuals. Actually, this is not the right case or the right artwork, so I won't show you that. But this is a... it's a first-person shooter, basically. It's kind of generic. It's not bad. But it's not great either. It's like a you're in like this submarine. I think that's on the front, right? Yeah, you're like in this underwater kind of base or whatever, and it's the typical kind of go around and figure out what's going on and fight the enemy stuff. So I like it though. It's one of those games I bought for the graphics and the back. So let's see. NBA Live was a great series in the 90s. Says gaming for years. Yes, it was. Mackenzie, did you know that North America Saturn cases were made by Sony for Sega? I did not know that. See, you learned something new. Right here in my stream, you learned something new about the history there. If Baku Baku had better music, that would be GOAT. Yeah, I didn't really care for the music either. That was one of the things that took away from it. But it was fine enough. A lot of times in these days, not so much today, but back then, as a teenager and whatnot, young kid, I used to play my video games while listening to music anyway, so I didn't really listen to the music. And puzzle games, definitely. So, yeah. All right, so next up we got Solar Eclipse. Very generic title for a somewhat generic game. But this is one of those FMV heavy games with Hollywood actors in it. I always, I like that stuff from back in the day. See if you can see the cover there. I'm trying to remember who. She's in some big movies from the 90s anyway. But yeah, it's it's a first-person shooter with that kind of story-based, FMV-driven kind of story. So, all right, did I miss anything? Man, if I had a time machine, I'd go back time just to get those Saturn RPGs. Yeah, that is my only regret on Saturn. You'll see. But here we go. Shell Shock is another one of those shooters, which I was into shooters. And when I bought the Saturn, or when I bought N64, I was ready 3D. So I looked for 3D games. At the time, it was like I believe it had to be. I don't want to say it had to be, but I believe just because it was 3D, it was better. I was in that kind of mindset, and apparently so was Sega of America. But anyway, another kind of you know generic-ish first-person shooter. You're in a tank and whatnot. So that's cool. All right, we're moving pretty steadily here, pretty well. All right, Black Dawn, another shooter. First person, you're in a helicopter, obviously, as you can see on the cover there. I love this cover. It almost has like a movie look to it. And the game graphics are okay. The controls aren't the best on this, but they're fine. Again, like I said, it's kind of semi generic, but not bad. Here's a game that should have been great, but isn't. It has one big major problem. This game is called Crime Wave. It's a very cool, visually game, very nice. This is like Grand Theft Auto. I don't know if this came out before Grand Theft Auto or not. The first one. This is like a GTA game, but like futuristic setting, and you have like your car is like this special kind of it has like rockets and all kinds of do stuff that's not on regular cars. So that's why it's like GTA, but your car is like a futuristic kind of like a spy hunter type of car. Nice visuals, nice gameplay, but the controls suck. I don't know what they were thinking. It's hard for me to explain how the controls work, but it's kind of like up always means forward. Yeah, it's almost like tank controls, but for a fast paced kind of driving shooting game. Not good. Somebody just said something. Baku, man. Master Yoshi, have you played a game called Lunacy on Sega Saturn? Because I wish they'd remake it. I did play Lunacy. I think you even asked me about that before, Master Yoshi. But I don't have it. I did play it back in the day. I really liked that game. And I probably 5 years ago, I looked to rebuy it, and that price. That's the thing about Sega Saturn. If you're trying to collect, boy, the good to great games are super expensive. I'm talking like $900 on the high end. It can be more than that for some games, complete. But man, this is one of the most, if not the most expensive system to collect for. Not sure how many games came out on it. I want to say it's around the 400 range, 3 to 400 range. But man, maybe not even that much. Maybe even 200 or something like that. But yeah, this system is super expensive to collect for. So what I did, probably in, I used to do it back then too, because we had this, back in the day we had Blockbuster, the video for video rentals and all that stuff, for those of you old enough to remember. But we also had Blockbuster Games, and Blockbuster Games was separate. Blockbuster Games was basically like EB Games, but Blockbuster owned it. So mine specifically had a section for what is it called? For import games. So I would check out the import games as well. I bought a few back then because I had the action replay, so you can play modded, or you can play region free games. So I would play those, and it wasn't very hard. It's not very expensive. It's not expensive today. You can buy one for $30 maybe. An action replay that goes in that cartridge slot that I was telling you about. So you can play import games very easily, and a lot of import games had English words in it, or some of them, it was very more arcadey, so you didn't need to know the language. You need to know Japanese to play some of these games, and you'll see some later that I really love that are Japanese only. That was a problem with the Sega Saturn, was that when Bernie Stoller came over from Sony, he had the idea that American gamers only wanted more 3D stuff. We only wanted more action stuff. So we missed out on a lot of RPGs. We got a few, but we didn't get a lot in numbers, and that's why Saturn RPGs are so expensive, because there are not that many produced in the U.S. And RPGs are very text heavy, so you need to know Japanese if you're going to get the import version. So that's not really an option. But Bernie Stoller decided, American gamers, we don't want that. We want action and shooting and stuff, which we did, but we also wanted RPGs, and that's why the PlayStation did so much better, because it had more RPGs, and obviously the console lasted longer. So there's that. All right, so now we're past sports games. This is one of my more collectible games. It's one of the more expensive ones, and this is called In the Hunt. This is a shooter. Yeah. This is a shooter. It's a submarine shooter underwater. Beautiful, beautiful visuals. Think of like, I'm trying to get my face in here. Think of like, what's that series? Oh my gosh, by SNK, the shooter Contra-like series. What is it called? Somebody help me. Somebody, please. Oh my gosh. What is that series? There's like 5 or 6 of them. If I can remember it later, maybe somebody will come up with it. But visually, you can see, very beautiful game. Yes, thank you, Adam Phillip. Metal Slug. I have like every Metal Slug game, but my brain went dead just now. Metal Slug. This is very much visually like that. Gorgeous and great shooter, great controls, great graphics. So I think this game will run you about 200 today, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 150. But yeah, this is one of my more collectible games. Now, somebody mentioned Saturn RPGs, but before I get in there, let's see if I missed anything here. Mackenzie Peters, if wasn't for Working Designs, we wouldn't get those beautiful Saturn RPGs. Yes. I'm going to break the bank at some point. I'm going to justify getting those Saturn RPGs. I have a couple of them, but I have Japanese versions, and I'll explain to you how I play them. But yeah, Working Designs, I think they're California-based company, and they made, what is it called? Localized a lot of those Saturn RPGs. And the thing about them was that all their games had this kind of foil look to them. So be this beautiful artwork on the covers. I don't even think the Japanese versions had that. I think this was the Working Designs only in US kind of stuff. And it had like the shiny foil look to them. And they're all gorgeous. All their games have that look, and they're gorgeous, and they're super expensive today. They're very collectible and very expensive. I think some of them, these games, you can get on PlayStation, but some of them are even to this day exclusive to the Sega Saturn. What did Sega Saturn sell? 8 million units, something like that. So super rare, super expensive. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars, especially if you're going to get a complete case and complete game in box. Very expensive, but Working Designs did some beautiful, beautiful artwork for the North American version. I think North America was the only ones that got those nice Working Design covers. So let's see, the PS1 version cheaper. I'm missing something. Is In the Hunt an expensive game? I would like to play it. Sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Last time I looked, it was about, and this was years ago, it was around $130. I didn't pay that. but because I bought it way back in the day. But for I guess it was a rare game, or I don't know. It's probably, I mean, you can look it up on like eBay or Amazon. Those are usually good um, places to look for an initial price. You might can do better. You can do better if you can go in person and to some of these stores that have it. You know, some of the local mom and pop shops or whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty sure In the Hunt is pretty expensive on Saturn. I don't know if there's another version or not. I feel like there is, but the Saturn version is pretty expensive. Um, on the more expensive side. So 150 to 2 is what I'm guessing. Could be more at this point. I don't know. PS1 is a lot more easy to collect for. The Saturn is more expensive. Yeah, no doubt. Saturn sold, like I said, 8 million units, and so it made it rare, and they didn't bring a lot of, especially Japan centric games didn't really come out in large bulk quantities in the U.S. So that's what makes it very expensive. You have the two what am I looking for, the two worst things as far as it being a very low selling console, and then a very low shipped software for the console. So 25 years later or whatever, these games are going to be very expensive to find, so, or to buy. So In the Hunt is on the Switch too. Yes, that's right. That's where I saw it, Hypnotoad. So yes, you can pick it up on Switch. Um, I would definitely recommend it. Highly recommend that game. I think it's downloadable on Switch only, which is, if you just want to play it, that's fine. But it is a really good side-scrolling shooter. Beautiful graphics. Let's see. Yep, Nintendo guy says it's digitally on the Switch. Yeah, I know I saw it somewhere else, but I guess I was surfing around on the eShop, and that's where I saw it, and I was like, oh, crap. That's a surprise. Mackenzie Working Designs' last Saturn game has a note thanking fans for buying their games. Can't remember which one it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that either. Master Yoshi, have you played Lunacy or Brain Dead 13? Yeah, Master Yoshi, I said I played it earlier. I don't know if you missed it, but yeah, I played Lunacy. I haven't played. Is Brain Dead 13 the Japanese name for it, or is that a different game? I haven't played that. But I did play Lunacy. I'm pretty sure you asked me that, like in a comment or something, before. Maybe as on one of my Saturn videos or something, Sega videos or something. But yeah, I have played Lunacy. I don't own it. I wish I did, because I think that game's over $200 now as well. So yeah. All right, moving on. Sega Saturn RPGs. Here is Grandia. The Saturn version of Grandia in North America does not exist. This is the only way you can play Grandia on the Sega Saturn, is the Japanese version. How do I play this? Well, I bought the Japanese version, and I bought the American version of the strategy guide, which is for PlayStation. So that's how I play this. Obviously, it sucks because I spoil things ahead of time, but I just like the game. So you can get it on PS1 for much cheaper, even than the Japanese version. But this is, I don't think I had a PlayStation at the time I bought this. So that's how I play it, because it is very text heavy. I don't speak Japanese or read Japanese, so yeah, that is Grandia. And Grandia 2 didn't come out even in Japan on Saturn. It's only on PlayStation. And little known fact, Saturn did really well in Japan. It actually was in second place behind the PlayStation in Japan. N64 was in third place behind the Saturn in Japan. Even though the Saturn was a very low selling failed console, Saturn in Japan did really well because it got all those great Saturn games that we didn't get, the Japanese stuff, RPGs, certain RPGs, as well as many other games, and you'll see some other games. Now, I can't do anything with this game. I mean, it's very, 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 very Japanese. But the reason I bought this game is because That guy on the front there, he was the mascot of Sega Saturn in Japan. His name is Sega Sanshiro. And there are some, I implore you to look up on YouTube uh, the Sega Saturn commercials from Japan. He walks around with like a giant Sega Saturn on his back, and he's doing exercises, and a giant, like you can see there, Sega Saturn controller. Why didn't we get this guy in America to sell games? Hilarious stuff. Sega ta Sanshiro, Sega ta Sanshiro, Sega ta Sanshiro. I mean, great stuff. Sega of America really fumbled. I don't know what they were thinking, but this guy would have sold some Saturns. Hilarious. Yes, R.I.P. Sega ta. When did he pass away? I feel like it was that long ago, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, Sega ta Sanshiro. So that's the only reason I bought this. And it's like quick little mini game stuff where I don't even know what's going on. But I had to get this. The Sega Saturn emulators are named after him. That I didn't know because I don't really pay attention to the emulators for Saturn. Because for a very long time, they weren't very good. It wasn't until like the last 5 years that they got good. I love Sega Tai too as well. Master Yoshi. Funny guy. Great commercials, and I wish they would have put your boy out here on the west side, but unfortunately not. Now, don't laugh at me. I don't know how I got this or when I got it. This looks like some J-pop. This looks like a J-pop music CD, but I think it's like I know it's a kind of a Dance Revolution kind of dance game. What do you call it? Like rhythm-based kind of thing. It's hard for me to follow, but she's not bad on the eyes there, so I don't mind having it. There's the back, just pictures of her, which is fine by me. So, digital dance mix. That was funny about the. Well, not funny, but I guess a lot of the Japanese games will have English, writing on them, English words, translation, and stuff on them. So, LOL, that's some hentai game. Says Afro Power. No, I promise you, it's not hentai. Unfortunately, no. Kidding. But yeah, dance, digital dance mix. All right, now this is a duplicate, but it's only because I have the North American version too. But I bought this one first, or vice versa. I can't remember. Well, it wouldn't make any sense. But Fighting Vipers, I really like Fighting Vipers. It's a kind of faster Virtua Fighter type of game, more like quirky characters and stuff. You're in like an arena that's like basically cage fighting. You can knock people up against the cage. You can break the cage walls and knock them out. I don't think there's an out of bounds in this, but very fun game. Love Fighting Vipers. Great stuff. Hey, you still alive? Says Nia. Yes, I'm still alive. Mackenzie Peters, you want to check out PCFX only in Japan? No, I'm good. I don't really do that stuff, but fine if you do. I don't care. But anyway, Fighting Vipers is great game. Now here's my baby. Mackenzie Peters pointed out the fact that I love this game, and there it is, Nights into Dreams. This is the one I got with the 3D stick. That's why it's a small CD. Let me see here. Somebody's message has been what do you call it? Censored. So let me allow it. All right. Oh, Master Yoshi, holy shit! I just noticed that I have more subs than you. Yeah, I knew you were close for a while. Congrats. For whatever reason, my subs haven't moved in like a year. But yeah, Fighting Vipers needs to come back. I agree, Retrofaction. Grace was my fave character in that game. Grace is dope, yeah. Just been playing Fighting Vipers 2 on DC recently. Nice. Used to own Fighting Vipers arcade cabinet. Sadly, had to sell it last year when I lost my job. Ah, that sucks. Sorry to hear that, TJ. I got Nights into Dreams on Steam, which is the best. Oh yeah, it is on Steam. So some of these games are on Xbox 360 Arcade and Steam, and they've been enhanced. Nights is one of those. I believe. What's the mech game? Virtual On. I don't know how that play. I don't know how they play, but TJ, who just said it was? Master Yoshi says Nights is good on there. It's also, like I said, it's on Xbox 360 Arcade. I don't know if that's still around. I don't even know. But yeah, fun fact: Fighting Vipers was Sega trying to make a fighting game to appeal to North American audiences, as Virtua Fighter wasn't doing as well in Japan. So there you go. Mackenzie Peters is up in here giving you guys some Sega facts. So there you go. Very nice. Based on the quality of your content, you should have over 1 million subs, in my opinion. Thank you, Master Yoshi. I appreciate that. I know you've been around since the beginning, so I really appreciate you and everybody for rocking out with me. People would rather watch news tubers. Yes, yes, Nia, they would. Unfortunately, I find that boring to just keep reading the news. I don't mind talking about the news, but just regularly doing that is not my thing. So here I am. But yeah, Nights is that freaking game. I hope Nights is the next movie that Sega makes. Because, a couple of years ago, they were talking about, putting their IPs out for making movies and whatnot. And obviously, we got Sonic this year. Was it this year? Yeah, right? Early this year. And Nights into Dreams is a perfect, like, DreamWorks, or I don't know if they would go to Disney with it. They probably go to like something like DreamWorks or Illumination to make this game. You don't want to talk about gaming news during these trying times. Nice one, Nia. Nice. Yeah, but like this game touched me emotionally. Like I love this game. Basically, you have these two characters, a boy and a girl. I can't think of their names right now, but they're connected through their dreams, and they share like this basically the superhero type character to fight off the evil. What are they called? Because now I'm gonna mix it up with 40 Winks. Nightmare. I think they're called nightmares in here. Nightmarin. That's what it is. Nightmarin. And they basically fight back the Nightmarin to save the world. Beautiful story. If I was to put it in a movie, I would only change one thing. I'd make, because they have this thing called twin dreams. That's how they meet and create the character Knights, who's like a superhero that fights the Nightmarin. I would make them like estranged twins, like they got separated at birth or something like that. That's what I would do. That's the only thing I would change. But the music in this game, oh my god, this is a Sonic Team game. Back when Sonic Team was at the peak, their top, and so we never got a Sonic game. I'll talk more about that later. But this is from that team that made the Sonic games. This is beautiful. So it has that kind of Sonic mechanic where you're ranked based on your speed through the level, but you don't have to speed through the level, and it's just great. Like, I don't know if I could recommend it for someone who's never played it because it's kind of a weird game. I think Mackenzie alluded to that, the way it's set up, but I love this game to death. Music is great. I would just sit on my Saturn. You can go to the menu for music menu, and I would just listen to the music in this game for hours. Like, great music, great visuals. Love this game. Beautiful story. And here we have Vampire Hunter, which is Darkstalker's Revenge in North America. I have both versions, just like Fighting Vipers. I have the Japanese version, and I think I probably just found the North American version cheap, and I jumped on it when I saw it. And I think that's probably what happened with both of these games. So it's a Capcom beautiful art fighting game. Again, Capcom was at their peak or peaking when it came to their 2D fighters, and they made some great ones in the '90s. So great stuff. The only reason I stayed at the casino in Sonic Adventure was for the Knights stuff. It was great in that game. Nice homage to Knights in Sonic Adventure. Let's see, kind of like Sister Sister, but with action. Yeah, says Nia. Sonic movie was a lot better than I expected. Thought it would be terrible. Same here, Adam. I was pleasantly surprised, which is great. I didn't. I don't know if I thought it would be terrible, but I didn't think it'd be anything memorable, and I really liked that movie. I look forward to more, but I want them to make Knights. They got to make Knights as a movie. It's set up perfectly for a movie, a CGI movie though. No live action. Don't do. I guess you could do live action because you want you're gonna have human characters. There's a lot of human characters, but there's the whole Nightmaring thing. It might be expensive. I don't know, but they did Sonic, so they should be able to pull it off. I don't know, my eyes. I have allergies, so let's see. Hopefully, they can get Boys to Men to sing the dreams. Oh man, in the night, dream delight. I wanna see your smiling face. All right, I ain't gonna. Great song, great theme song, great music in that game. Dang, that is rare. What's rare? Retrofaction. Half those games I gave you, and oh, there he is. So, I made a video. Striker 99 is in the video. There's no half. I talked about my collection and whatnot on that video, and I talked about the friend that gave me these games. If you want that story, you can go check that out. But it's whatever. I'm not gonna go through it now. Let's see what Mackenzie. I love Night Warriors. I even got. Dude, get out of here with this, man. Get out. Let's see. All right. I love Night Warriors. I have the North American version. It's my favorite Saturn game and my first game for the system. What game? Oh, Night Warriors. Yeah, Darkstalker's Revenge. All right. Let's see. Video game lover 58. What's up? VG 58. Too bad the Saturn bombed in the U.S. Crazy that it was so popular in Japan. Yeah, it's too bad it bombed here, but it is what it is. Like I said, they made some bad decisions. I almost said Nintendo of America, Sega America made some bad decisions. It wasn't just them; they were butting heads with Sega Japan, and everybody was trying to prove themselves. It was a power struggle, so it is what it is. Why not let it go, Striker? It water under the like it's silly. It really is silly because here's the thing. Most of what I got from him was, like I said, sports titles. I already had Saturn and games, and you can go back to my channel. I showed all my stuff before this. He was gonna throw this stuff away. It wasn't like, oh, I got an opportunity. He was gonna throw this stuff away. I said, no, don't throw that away, man. Give it to me. And again, most of what I got from him was sports titles from Sega, for Sega Saturn, stuff like that, and consoles, Sega Saturn consoles. But I already had my own console. I already had my own Sega Saturn at the time. I already had Sega Dreamcast. As another thing he gave me, Sega Dreamcast, and a bunch of ripped games, which I don't use because if you know, ripped games on your Dreamcast will mess up your lens quicker. So I don't do ripped games. So that's that story. I'm done with it. Be butthurt, bruh. Whatever you got to do, live with it. I'm moving on. I've moved on years ago. So anyway, Adam Phillip. What's the pendant on your chain? Oh, this is Lazarus, Santa Lazaro, for you, because I'm not myself Catholic, but it's Catholic saint of the poor, patron of the poor, Santa Lazaro. I've had this. I just like the story of Saint Lazarus, So I've had this chain, well, not this emblem, this one specifically. I've had a Saint Lazarus chain probably since, not chain, but emblem, since I was probably 17. I started wearing Saint Lazarus chains, so, or emblems. I keep saying chains, but yeah, that's what it is. Saint Lazarus, Santa. You can look up the story of Santa Lazaro. All right, moving on. And again, just one last thing for Striker. No, none of my Japanese games. You wouldn't know how to play them probably. Anyway, Albert Odyssey. Again, this game is, there is a North American version of this game, but it's very expensive for one, and it comes in the big case or whatever. But you know, I saw this for a decent price, and I thought I'd give it a go. I'm lost, so yeah. But you know, I tried to play it, but you can't play Japanese RPGs unless you speak Japanese or read it, so it doesn't work. Oh, it works, but it doesn't work for trying to play it. But like I said, a lot of the North American released JRPGs on Saturn are super expensive today, and hindsight is 2020. Some of these games I had back then, but you know, back then I was trading stuff, so I traded because the Dreamcast was coming, or I wanted some stuff on my N64. So I was trading stuff. So a lot of stuff, you know, I ended up having to rebuy later on, but you know, it just didn't, you know, pan out as far as me thinking ahead or wanting to. What's the word I'm looking for? For me wanting to keep this stuff because, you know, I wasn't thinking about that ahead of time. So it is what it is. All right. Now another one, Deep Fear. This is a kind of alone in the dark type of game. Again, very hard to play in the Japanese version. I'm not sure about this one. I don't know if there's a North American version of this game or not. There might be. But this is, you know, this is alone in the dark type of game, survival horror type of game. Still, you know, you need story for those. It's still kind of hard to play. So, but I think there is a North American version of this, but I don't have it. Let's see. I choked hard when it came to Sega Saturn collecting. Waited too damn long. Yeah. I didn't wait too long, but long enough to where things were getting somewhat expensive. And like I said, I bought stuff back in the day that I ended up trading because I was in that mindset of, you know, that's old, I don't need that anymore, let's go on to the new thing. It wasn't until I got the Wii that I started getting like nostalgic for my old stuff, so I started rebuying some of the old stuff I had. I kept all my systems though. I would always keep the system, but I would trade up games all the time. And obviously, you know, EB Games and all these game stores, Blockbuster Games, all this stuff, they would, you know, give you trade-in value and whatnot. And so back then, I didn't care as much. It wasn't until 2007 where I was like, man, I want that stuff back. And I'll have a lot of younger siblings, so I would pass stuff down to them, which waste because they didn't take care of it the way I would. So that's another thing. All right, so we were talking about Sonic Team earlier, or I was, and here's another great Sonic Team game. This is Burning Rangers, and this game is visually beautiful, wonderful effects, great music and sound design, and still somewhat hard. This game is somewhat hard to play, but it's, you know, a little harder because it's in Japanese. So there's, because you're going along and it's giving you instructions to do certain things tutorial wise, at least in the first couple of levels or so, till you get the hang of what you're supposed to do. But even then, they're still telling you what to do. So it's, you know, it's hard to play this to someone. And this is another one of those games that even 5 years ago, this was more collectible or more easier to buy. The North American version, it was, you know, right at 100 or a little bit more. This game is like $300 now, North America. So um, very expensive. Like I said, Saturn is very expensive to collect for. Let's see. The Wii got me back into gaming in college. Yeah, same for me. Like I was ready to be done after the GameCube, PS2, Xbox era, and then the Wii was like, "Nah, bro, you ain't done yet." So that's when I started getting more nostalgic, and the Wii knew that. That's why they had the whole the. That's why they brought the Virtual Console and all that stuff because they knew people who grew up with Nintendo were getting to that age where they might start getting nostalgic for it, and perfect timing. So that got me into wanting to get my old games back. So let's see. I would trade in my older games for new stuff. Yeah, everybody did that. You know, again, when we were that young, you just like, well, I need the money to get the new stuff, so I don't have it, so I need to trade some of my old stuff that I don't really play anymore. But you get into those cycles, and now I want that stuff back. You know, so Retrofaction, Burning Rangers needs a reboot. Yes, it does. Like some of these, I mean, it's a very arcadey game, so they would need to add new stuff. It's basically you're basically a firefighter. You're like a futuristic firefighter. So I don't know how well that would hold up for just a game concept today. But I wouldn't mind like a remaster like they did with Panzer Dragoon. Hopefully, it launches better than Panzer Dragoon has. I hear it's a lot better now. It's where it should be. I wish they would just wait. I don't know why they don't just wait until the game is where it needs to be, instead of trying to rush it out. But I wouldn't mind to see a HD remaster or something of Burning Rangers. Let's see. Oh, I just went too far. How did Deep Fear not get a North American release by Sega when the Resident Evil games was so popular? Yeah, and Sega, or yeah, Resident Evil did release on Sega Saturn as well. I feel like Alone in the Dark is on Saturn too. I don't know in North America, but this is the stuff I'm talking about. It was just very disjointed releases when it came to North American stuff for Saturn, and that just killed the console here. Like I said, it did well in Japan, but here it didn't fare as well. That's for video. That's for Nia. Adam, Burning Rangers had a shit track in Sonic Racing Transformed. Did it? I don't remember. Afro Power, the English version theme song is so much better than the Japanese version. For what? I must be missing. Which one you're talking about there? Yeah, they got me. Let's see. I was in organizations and stuff in high school and college, and I still gamed, but I wasn't hardcore till yeah. That I mean that's I wasn't crazy gaming in high school either. It wasn't until just after is when I got really into it again, which was like Dreamcast era, and then GameCube onto now. So, sorry for asking kind of an unrelated question. Oh, don't worry. Did I miss it, or did I answer it already? Oh, how long does it take until your voice starts hurting doing the T voice? Can you do it forever if you wanted to? I mean, if you don't remember Master Yoshi, I used to use that voice exclusively on my channel when I first started, and I would be in podcasts for 2 hours doing it. It never really hurts. It just gets groggy, like, so I don't have as much control over it. Probably after, as far as podcasting goes, probably after an hour. So I usually, if you notice on the podcasts I've been in, I tone down as much as the talking I do by that time, because it's like, oh, I don't have the control I like to have on it. But yeah, I mean, it never really hurts. It's just I get, not unlike when you're just talking and talking a lot and your voice gets dry, and it just gets a little rougher and harder to use. All right, for the Burning Ranger game, the English version songs, Japanese version songs, it had different singers. Oh, okay, got you. See, I wasn't even paying enough attention to that. And I did have Burning Rangers, the North American version, and I traded it, and now, like I said, it's like a $300-$400 game, and I don't care about that part. I just want the game, and to get it at this, it's not like oh man, I want that game because it's expensive to own. It's rare, blah blah. I don't care about that. I just want to have it, and I just wish I never traded it. So there's that. All right, moving on to this wonderful game that led into a great game on Dreamcast. This is Street Fighter versus Marvel. Isn't that what it's called? Yeah, Marvel Superheroes. This basically is what led into Marvel versus Capcom. If they would have thought about it, they probably would have just called it that for this version. But there's only Street Fighter characters, I believe, in this game. So there's not just Capcom characters. There's only Street Fighters. If I'm not mistaken, I think there may be a couple here and there that you unlock. But there's a couple here that you unlock, I think, that are, those types of just Capcom from other Capcom games. But great game. I love this game. I used to play the hell out of this in arcades back in the days, in the mid '90s and whatnot. I used to be in the arcades all the time, especially after school or on the weekends. I would be in the arcades all the time, and this game would be full, just lit up, a line of people just playing it. And it sucks because we had the North American arcade version of this game, but we never got the North American Saturn version. This is the only version. Which is weird because Marvel Superheroes is very big here. Marvel was very big and still is to this day. And Capcom was very big here. I don't know why we never got a North American version of this game, but that's fine because there's plenty of Saturn versions of this or Japanese versions of this game. So it's very viable. It's decently priced. I think $35 to $40 you can get this game. Thank you, Mackenzie Peters, for the $5 donation. Here's a small tip for some more Saturn games to be in your collection. Thank you. How many accounts? Yeah. Ignore. A lot. If I really wanted to go in on them, I could, but I'm so over it. Like, I'm not gonna do that. All right, so yeah, Marvel, for whatever reasons, they never came out here, and I have 2 copies of this game. And I'm glad because I can show you. This is the way it came in Japan, full. It came in a box and whatnot. So why did it come in this big box, you might ask? Well, because a lot of these fighters, 2D fighters, arcade fighters in Japan, needed more RAM than the Saturn had. Not unlike the RAM expansion for the N64. I'm going to tear the plastic here. So it came shipped with this RAM expansion cart. I'm not sure if this one has memory on it. I think it has memory as well, so you can use it as a memory card. And I don't think there's anything on the back you can read there. But yeah, so you needed this to play Japanese, mostly the Capcom fighters from Japan. So I don't know why, because some of them came here and you didn't need it. But certain games needed the expansion. And like I said, what is it called? What is it called? Let me look at it. Oh, Action Replay. Action Replay has RAM expansion in it. So if you have that, you don't need this. You can just have that. And you're going to need it anyway to play Saturn, Sega, to play import games, is what I'm trying to say. You're going to need it anyway to do that. So there you go. And very nice little package, and I'll show you the there's the game there. In there, so slightly different cover for this version. So you had a version where if you already had the 4 megabytes, you can use that. But if not, you can use you can buy one that came with the 4 MB. So I never even I rarely open this, but I like how the cartridge is kind of like see through, or because that was a big thing in the '90s. Oh, I want to see the electronics inside. So a lot of that, you can get controllers and whatnot that had, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Not see through, not just opaque or transparent. You can kind of see through them. So yeah, there's that. All right, moving on. Now here's one of my loose games. I'm sure this was given to me by Mr. Multiple Accounts who won't move on with his life. PGA Tour 97. I'm pretty sure I didn't buy this because I didn't get into golf games until Mario Golf, actually. I didn't even understand golf until I bought Mario Golf for N64. And then I started buying golf games because I was like, oh, now I understand the mechanics of it. I get it. So this was most likely donated to me or given to me by Mr. Multi-Account who can't move on. It's like he acts like we were in a relationship. It's weird. All right, so here we go. Virtua Fighter remix. I'm not sure. There is. This is funny. All right, so there is a North American version. This is the Japanese version of Virtua Fighter remix. But I only bought this version because I needed a case, and I hate not having cases for some of my bigger games. So what I did is I would, if it's cheap enough, I would buy the Japanese version just to have a case, a nice case. But in here should be, I don't want to look stupid, should be the North American version of the game. Let's pop it open. There. I'm right. So that is the USA version. You can tell because it has the ESRB rating of T, which is only in the West, or at least in North America, I should say, not just West, because West has some PEGI if you're in the UK and in Europe. But yeah, this is the North American version. Like I said, I only bought this because I wanted to have a nice case for a loose game. So that's why I bought that. And so I have the Japanese version as well, but I don't play that when I play the North American version, when I can. All right. Here's another classic game that only came out in Japan, another fighting game. Anybody know what this is? Can you tell? Or is it on there? Yeah, you can. It's at the top. Dead or Alive. This is the first Dead or Alive game. I'm guessing this is on PSX as well, but I got the Japanese version because it was believed, and it's probably true that. Well, I know it's true for a lot of games, but the fighting games were better and faster on Sega Saturn because it was just a console that was optimized for especially 2D fighters, but even 3D fighters, some of them looked better, ran better on the Saturn. It was a very good fighting game console, arcade fighting game console. So DOA, love this game. Love those character models. All right, something's buzzing. Okay, so now because he has my phone number, this weird dude is probably calling me. Man, it's embarrassing. I don't want to go the legal route, but I will if I have to. Stalker. All right. Does anybody know what this is? Another game that I had the North American version of, but it's not crazy expensive, but it's a little bit more expensive today. You can tell by the character on the front. This is Saturn Bomberman, and it's very playable in Japanese because it's a Bomberman game. You don't need to know a lot of. There's not a lot of talking and whatnot, or you can manage the menus and whatnot pretty easily in this game, especially if you played the American version, which I did. But yeah, Saturn Bomberman, great game. This is one of those games, probably one of the first games to utilize like LAN big time. I think you can play like 16 players. You hook up like 4 Saturns or something crazy. Saturn Bomberman. Dope. All right, moving on. Here we have another Saturn game or another Japanese game, but there is a North American version of this game, but it's also somewhat expensive. And this is I have both of these. I have the North American version of Part One. This is Part Two of Clockwork Knight. Let's see. I don't want to miss too much of what you guys are saying. If you're saying, all right, Clockwork Knight is a side-scrolling kind of 3D-ish with 3D backgrounds that would come out at you. Side-scrolling game, hard, but very good. It is very good. This was their mascot for the Saturn, one of them anyway. One of those attempts. Never really caught on. The first one was a launch title, if I'm not mistaken, and then this one came out as well. But these are very good games. I can understand why Part 2 is expensive because it's probably harder to find than the first one because it was a launch title. The first one was, and Part 2 probably had limited quantities. But there is a North American version. I don't think I have it. Yeah, this is the Saturn or the Japanese version. Here's the thing I really liked about Japanese games, Saturn games, is look at that artwork. We got like really bland. I'll show you one after this. But it's color. It's like color, full color artwork on a CD. Gorgeous stuff. That's why I really like the Japanese. A lot of the Japanese games had that. Let me see if I can find, like even like In the Hunt. Yeah, it was like one color, like blue or all green or, kind of bland. No characters or anything on them. But again, they didn't put a lot of emphasis for us over here, so it is what it is. Yeah, and the music in Clockwork Knight is pretty cool. Afro Power. Don't be embarrassed, guys. The jackass. Yeah, I believe he's calling my phone. What do you call? Blocking his number. It's sad. There needs to be an intervention. But do I got a multi-tap? No, I don't think I do. I might. Like I said, I got stuff that I don't remember in storage, so yeah. I might have a multi-tap. Temp mod. I'm trying to do my best as far as regulating the chat. I don't want to ask you guys to do that, so. But anyway, moving on. All right. Next up. Oh boy. Now this is a Japan only game, and it's a very Japanese game, but very very playable in North America if you have, the Japanese. There's only Japanese copy. So, but this is a very playable game. I love this game. This feels like a treasure game, and I'm going to look on the back because I never really looked. It says Takara. It feels like a treasure game. It plays like a treasure game. It's fast-paced shooter. It's kind of an isometric, top-down kind of a shooter. Yeah, there's some story and whatnot. Beautiful graphics. Great sound design and music, and I love the graphics in this game. I don't know if you can't really get a good look at them, I don't think. They didn't pick the best screens there either, but very good game. Love it. Love this game. Steam Gear. It's called Steam Gear Mash. I don't think it's that expensive. So look it up. If you have a action replay, this is a great Saturn game to have. And here's a game that I'm going to be looking for. I have been, but I haven't seen one in a price that I like. I'm looking for the Japanese version of this game so I can have a case for this, and that's Panzer Dragoon. I know I had the full case for this. I don't know what happened. You guys hear me tell stories about it before. I lost a lot of stuff because I used to store it in the trunk of my car, and rainwater got in and ruined a lot of my magazines, a lot of my gaming mags, a lot of covers for my games, my game cases. Because I would keep my games in the house on a CD spool, and I still kind of do that. I don't know if I have one close. Yeah, I do actually. Can I reach it without knocking everything over? Let's see. Do it. You can do it. You can do it. Damn. Oh no. All right, that didn't fall. All right. So I keep a lot of my games. Here's my game. Is there a stack of my what is this system called? GameCube games. So I would keep my games on CD spools, and I would leave the cases because it was easy to store them in my car because I didn't have the room back then. And water got in, seeped down through the trunk and ruined a lot of my stuff. So I talked about that before. But yeah, it doesn't matter because I like, as Adam just pointed out, I like the Japanese artwork for this way better. They used it for the remake. That artwork on the remake cover, if you have the physical copy of the game, that's the Japanese artwork. The North American artwork was very ugly. In North America, for a lot of these games, they like to use like these ugly 3D renders because they thought that would appeal to us more here instead of like the beautiful hand-drawn artwork that a lot of Japanese games would use. So I'm looking for a Japanese version of this game just so I can put my North American copy into that case. So there you go. And I did that because I couldn't find the case for this one either. And I know I had the cases for both of these. Panzer Dragoon 2, or Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei. And this should be the North American copy. Let's discover it together because I don't remember. I haven't played it in a while. I'm trying to open this without having to look at it. And let's discover it. Is that North America? Yeah, that's the North American copy. So I already did that for this sequel, but haven't done it yet for the first one, and I will because the Japanese covers are way better looking than those ugly, rudimentary 3D model renders that we got over here. And this game is gonna break me down because, bro, I had this game, North American. This is the Japanese version. Yeah. This game right now, in a case, the North American version. This is Panzer Dragoon 3, by the way, which is Panzer Dragoon Saga, which is the RPG one. It kind of went away from what 1 and 2 were. It still has similarities. There's still like on rails shooting and stuff in it, but this is a full-on JRPG, and it's a 4-disc game. So you can get a look at it. There's the disc 1. Is it 4 or 3 discs? Can't remember. It should be 4. Oh gosh, stuff's falling out. Oh, there it all goes. I'll pick it up later. But yeah, so there went my guide, or not guide, but manual. But very much like Final Fantasy VII or all the Final Fantasies, multi-disc games, huge epic saga, and the North American version of this game will run you $700-800. Maybe you'll get lucky with loose copy for $4 to $6, but very rare. They probably made 10,000 copies of this game for North America. There's a lot more in Japan, like I said, because the Saturn did better in Japan. So I'm looking for loose copies. I don't need the what do you call it? Loose copies of even the PAL version, because I can play PAL games. So I just want it in English. What I've been doing, because I had this game back in the day. I never beat it. I'm sure I never beat it. Had this game back in the day. Ended up trading it after a while. Mostly, it's weird because I liked RPGs, but because I wanted Panzer Dragoon to be Panzer Dragoon. I never gave this game the chance that I should have given it, and so I never got into it. So I ended up trading it. I don't remember for what. Probably something stupid. Probably just to pay for another console. Most likely the Dreamcast. because I was mad at Sega at the time, and I was like, I'm not spending more money on Sega because a friend of mine had to talk me into buying a Dreamcast because I was so pissed off at how they treated the Saturn, and he talked me into it eventually, and I loved having that game. Um, so, wow, really? Yeah, I'm gonna have to report you. I'm gonna have to report you now. Pathetic. Um, anyway, yeah. Now I'm gonna have to go legal. I'll do that because I know everything about you. You know I do. So anyway, um, I wish I never traded it. I ended up trading it. I bought this copy probably like 10 years ago or so. Probably for $30. I don't think it's. It might not be that expensive now, even to this day. The Japanese version, but North American copies are ridiculously priced, and I get super jelly when I see somebody with one. My boy Clocked It. Shout out to Clocked It. He has the PAL version. He lives in Wales, so he has the PAL version, and it's a wonderful game. That I think the problem with this game specifically is Sega, I believe, lost the source code to this game. Just lost it. So that's why we haven't gotten a port or anything like that. So this game's gonna have to be like reverse engineered, the way Mario 64 has been recently, for us to get a port. So somebody get on that. I'm sure somebody's working on it now because there's some crazy Sega fanatics like myself out there. There's group after group of guys who kind of do that kind of stuff. But yeah, so hopefully they get to reverse engineering this game, so we can get it ported to newer systems because this is a classic right here. All right, now we're moving on. I think we're past my Japanese games. All right, this came out not too long ago for Switch, and it's Double Switch. And this is one of those FMV games. I believe this came out on the Sega CD first, and after that on the Saturn. So this is one of those FMV games, like I said. Same with House of the Dead 1. What's that? Polymega Legend. Yes, thank you for reminding me because I wanted to talk about that Hypnotoad. But let me finish talking about Double Switch and I'll get to that. All right, so Corey Haim, the actor, he I don't know, I think he overdosed some years ago. Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, those were like two buddies that were in movies all the time in the 80s and early 90s. And, there's a sad Hollywood story pretty much for both of them. But this is one of those actors, Hollywood actor games, FMV games that came out in that era. And I always kind of looked for those. And it's pretty cool. And like I said, this is on Switch right now. I don't know if I could recommend this because these games are harder to recommend if you're not somebody of that era. But for you to go out and buy it on Switch, it's funny. It's all the Switches because it's called Double Switch and it's on the Switch. It's kind of confusing. But anyway, there's that. Good game. I like it. I like it a lot. And like I said, I was into those games a lot more. And speaking of games, kind of like that. Oh, first, Polymega. So I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, it got Kickstarted. Company, Polymega, wanted to make a console that allowed you to play, like, a lot of these retro games. Not all of them, but a lot of these retro systems all in one system. And it's going to be coming out this year. It's expensive. I think it's like $400. So it's going to cost you, what a PlayStation 4 cost you day one. But for somebody like me, a retro gamer, it's totally worth it. All right. So, it'll allow you to play your Sega CD games. It'll allow you to play Sega Saturn games. It'll allow you to play, oh God, help me out. Sega CD, Sega Saturn. I don't know if PlayStation is in there or not. I feel like it is, but I'm not sure. Retrofaction, help me out. But it also comes with these add-on things, so you can slide them on, so you can do cartridge-based stuff like Sega Genesis, Sega Master System, all that kind of stuff. It's all in one. But here's the reason I'm really stoked for it. Now, I love the fact that it does all that. And obviously it has HDMI out, so you don't have to worry about those games looking crappy on a today console. PS1, thank you, Mackenzie Peters. PS1, I don't know why I didn't say that. PlayStation 1, and they're going to be trying to update it and add on more stuff to it as the time goes on. But this is what I love about it, because it is hooked up to the internet, so you can put your you can put your game in. It'll basically make a ROM of that game, and you won't have to put the disc in if you don't want to. So that's good because it preserves your CD, your lens, so that lens lasts longer because you can just play the ROM after you dump it on there. But also, what it will do is it'll allow you to use like what do they call it? Fan translations. So you can download patches to Japanese games like Panzer Dragoon Saga. There is a patch for this game for the English version. You can download that patch, put this game in, and play it in English. Neo Geo CD, thank you, Retrofaction. If you remember any more, go ahead and throw them in there. So I don't have to go out and buy that $600 or $700, $800, $900 game, because I'm not going to do that. It's way too expensive for one game to play. I can just get the Polymega and play the English version of these games. So now I can go and get the Japanese version of the game, download the patch, and play them right on the console, right on the hardware. Beautiful. That is great. And obviously, like I said, HDMI out, so modern TVs, and without having to do what I do now, which is converters and top of converters on top of HDMI splitters and whatever. I don't mind doing it, whatever works. But yeah, so Polymega. I think it's coming out this fall, which is not the best time for it to drop. You can play Dreamcast games on the Polymega. That one I don't know, gaming for years. I was thinking Dreamcast, but I don't know if it goes up to Dreamcast or not. But they, I'm sure it will. If it doesn't, it will at some point. I feel like it does. Just look them up. Look them up. Polymega on YouTube. Look up the YouTube channel. They show, and I think some Metal. Is it Metal Jesus? I think it's Metal Jesus got an early hardware. He showed it off on his channel, as well as what's the Australian? Is he Australian or New Zealand? I can never tell between those two. Don't hurt me for that. Modern Vintage Gamer. He got to use it as well and show it. He showcased it as well. And so if you want to look up those videos, if you're sub to those guys or whatever, you can check out their videos on it. Or you can go to Polymega's YouTube channel, and they show you demonstrations and how it looks great and it works great. And retro gamers like myself going crazy for that. All right, moving on. Last little stack here. Myst. We all know what Myst is. Don't need to tell you about it. Famous PC game that sold like crazy and was a big hit, and everybody loved it when it came out. Went on to have the sequel, what was it, Ribbon, which I have on PS1. But mostly I played this first on PC, and I had to get it for my Saturn. So love Myst. It's very strange, hard to navigate, but a really cool, weird story. All right, Sky Target. Kind of a generic, what do you call them, F-15 fighter game, like Ace Combat, but not as good, But still good. It's not a bad game. It's still good. It's just a little bit generic. But I like my shooters. I like my aircraft shooters, and I like my space shooters. All right. And here we have Virtua Cop. This is, again, on rails, kind of first-person shooter, not really. But, you've just seen these games before. These are the games where you have the gun, and you just shoot your targets or whatever as the camera moves along. And I love Virtua Fighter. Great game. I don't have the gun for this game, but you can't really use it on HD TVs anyway. That's why I have my CRT in the back there. So I get down on that. Right? So let me get a sip here. I feel like my voice is getting horse. My best missed is best on Atari Jaguar CD. Oh boy. Talk about like hardware, unreliable hardware. From what I know, the Atari Jaguar CD has a high failure rate. If you have a working one, good for you. Goodness gracious. Alien Trilogy, another first-person shooter games. I love Alien. There was no way. I have Alien on Super Nintendo as well. Alien 3 from LJN, which they didn't make good games, but Alien is one of those good games that LJN published. So, yeah, first-person shooter. Very good. Very good sound design. Nice graphics. All right. Oh boy, the infamous Street Fighter, the movie, the game. This is a classic right here. This game gets a bad rap, but I think it's actually pretty decent. It has like Mortal Kombat photo, what do they call that? Kind of photo, not realism, but photosynthesized characters. So you have that kind of realistic looking characters that you would see in like Pit Fighter and Mortal Kombat, but with Street Fighter. But it, obviously it has a Street Fighter moves, but it feels like Mortal Kombat. So that's kind of weird. But it's not bad. It's not terrible. So just weird because the Street Fighter games were already so good. So why do that? All right, more Street Fighter. Street Fighter Alpha, North American version. I think we're getting to the pricey. I haven't really looked these up, but I think these might be on the pricier side. Street Fighter Alpha, we know what that is. Part of the collection. If you want to play, a lot of these Street Fighter games, they're on the collection, on Switch and everything else. Photosynthesize. Yeah, I know that's not the right word. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. Here we go. Street Fighter Alpha 2. I used to play the crap out of this game. I didn't go right to film school after college. I went to electronics school because in high school I had electronics 1, 2, and 3, and I really got into it. I liked soldering. I liked, working on circuit boards, and but the one part that I didn't like as much was the math. That really would throw me for a loop. But I didn't experience too much of a struggle in high school. But when I got to college, when I got to technical school, I was not good at the math, and I just quit. I ended up quitting. But next to my technical school was it's like a putt golf and games, I think it was, and in there they had Street Fighter Alpha, and I would go on my breaks, play the crap out of the game. Street Fighter Alpha was so mind-blowing visually over Street Fighter 2 at the time to me that really drew me into the game, and like all the specials and stuff. Great stuff. All right. And Capcom, they like their collections. They didn't just start doing that. Here's Street Fighter Collection. I think this is one of their first collections, though. I don't think they really had any before this. So this has Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and Street Fighter Alpha 2 Gold on this collection. Weird that they skipped over one, but yeah, that's what's in this collection. Street Fighter Alpha 2 is the best. Super Fighter Alpha 3 is visually amazing. Yeah, I don't have Alpha 3. And even the Japanese version on Saturn, what do they call them in Saturn? They call them Street Fighter X, not X. What were they called? Zero. Street Fighter Zero. That's what they call them. So the Street Fighter Alpha here in the West was Street Fighter Zero. So it was Street Fighter Zero, Street Fighter Zero 2, and Street Fighter Zero 3. So Street Fighter Zero 3 is Street Fighter Alpha 3. And that game today on Sega Saturn will run you about 300. So even to this day, even the Japanese version, because there's only a Japanese version. Rampage, we know what Rampage is. Really good arcade game from the 80s that had legs up until probably early 2000s. So, yeah. Skeleton Warriors. This was I feel like this was a cartoon series or something. I'm pretty sure it was. It's just this 2D kind of brawler game. Very nice visuals and sound design as well. But yeah, I feel like this was a cartoon or something I used to watch back in the day. And that's why I ended up getting this. I have to look it up. I should have looked it up before I came on here, but I forgot. I forgot I even had this game. So, Earthworm Jim 2. I mean, who doesn't know what that is? Visually beautiful, Tim Burton-esque 2D side-scrolling platforming game. Very popular on Super Nintendo. I think this is the only one that's on Saturn. If I'm not mistaken. All right, time to fix my stack here. It's stacking up really high. I'm going to split it in half here. Here we go. Let's do that so it's not too high. And I have more room over there. All right. Pandemonium. One of those trippy, I love this trippy 2D, kind of pseudo 3D background. I think your character model was actually in 3D as well. The backgrounds were 3D, but it was on the 2D plane. But sometimes it would kind of curve in and out. Very trippy. What's the other game that's like this? I can't think of. I know Klonoa is similar, but I don't think that's what I'm thinking about. But this is the only one. There's 2 Pandemonium games, if I'm not mistaken, but only one came out on Sega Saturn. I don't know if it's expensive or not. It probably is, because it's the only one on Saturn. I don't know. And here is Clockwork Knight, the first one. Like I said, I have the North American version. I think I have a loose copy of this too. So, yeah. All right, Bug and Bug 2. I know I have Bug somewhere. This is Bug 2. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure one wasn't in here. So this is Bug 2. Bug was a launch title. This is the sequel to it. It's all right. You know, it's another one of those 2D side scrollers that kind of operate on 3D as well. You go in and out. You know, you go back in the background and you come forward. Sega was really trying to find another mascot to work on Sega Saturn. Bug was one of them. Clockwork Knight was one of them. What's the character in Burning Rangers was one, and obviously Knights was one. So, yeah, these are good. I think what's his name? Steven Spielberg produced this or something. He funded it. Something. I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg had something to do with this game. And here, I've seen the other copy, my loose copy of this game. This is the end all be all of 2D side scrolling games on Sega Saturn. This is one of the most beautiful 2D games I've ever seen to this day. Amazing sound design, huge big sprite characters. Gorgeous game, a stall. I know this is probably, well, I don't want to say I know, but I feel like this is probably expensive. I have 2 copies of this. I have one loose, and I have this, obviously, copy here. Let me make sure a stall is in here. Yeah, it is. And that's what the game looks like. Again, I bet the Japanese copy probably looks more visually appealing, the cover, the CD cover itself. But, yeah, this is that game. If you... any Sega fanboy knows a stall, and they talk about a stall. This is a great, great game. I believe this is a treasure game. What does it say? I feel like this is treasure as well. Doesn't say on here. I don't see it. Yeah, it just says Sega, but treasure was probably the developer. Played a stall on NVIDIA Shield. Ran great. Amazing game. Says Adam. Who said, what are you asking? Treasure. Oh. Bug games look nice, but get boring pretty quick. Yeah, they get boring after a while. I mean, they're just okay. They're not great, like I said. Yeah, Klonoa played like Pandemonium, but I only played them on PS1, says Hypnotoad. Yeah, I mean they're basically the same. I played the PS1 version as well, and it's pretty similar. I couldn't tell any differences. Is Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub Zero you were thinking about? Uh, no, maybe that is. I don't know. Maybe it's probably what I was thinking about, Mackenzie. What up, T? I see that Rampage says Certain Squared. What's up, Certain Squared? Welcome. Um, Man, great collection so far. Thank you, Game for Years. Like I said, I'm going to get more stuff. uh, Jim Sterling loves that show. Are you talking about Skeleton Warriors? That was a show, right? Is that what you're talking about, Ritual Faction? Let me know, because I remember. I feel like I watched the show Skeleton Warriors back in the day. Hopefully, that's what you're talking about. Let's see. Alpha 3 also had a dope PSP version. Yeah, Alpha 3 is also on PSP. Do I have that? I feel like I might have that one. That version. Yeah, yeah. I know Alpha 3 was released in North America on. I should have said that on PS1 and Dreamcast. Yeah, I know. I was just talking about Saturn, but yeah, I know it's on the other systems. Pretty sure Capcom. I'm pretty sure Capcom has used that exact same art. They probably did, those cheap bastards. Retrofaction says yes. Skeleton Warriors is a show. Yes. All right. Good. I remember that. It probably wasn't one of those one season, you know, shows that came out and went. That's why I don't remember it completely in my brain. There's a lot of stuff in here I try to remember. But Bucky O'Hare was one of those one season shows that I do remember from back in the day. It has a really cool Super Nintendo game. I think it's Super, or maybe it's arcade, or both. All right, now X-Men: Children of the Atom, and yes, you know you've seen many games like this from Capcom, but this is Acclaim's version, right? Is it Acclaim? No, this is Capcom. All right. I feel like Acclaim made. Oh, this, yeah. It says so. Maybe a Capcom Acclaim published this or developed it, and Capcom published, or vice versa. Maybe it's a dual thing. It says Capcom and Acclaim on the back. So this tries to be like, you know, the Capcom Street or Fighter game, but it's a little bit different. So that's why I feel like Acclaim developed this. But because it's a little bit off from your typical kind of Capcom 2D brawler fighter back in the day. Visually looks very similar, but I think it played different. I haven't played it in a while, so I don't remember. But and here we have Marvel Superheroes. This is another one of those games in the arcades that was always full. People waiting with their quarters to play. I was never great at the 2D fighting games. I was good. You know, I would win here and there. But there were some guys that were just disgusting. You know, that would just, you know, make you go crying home to your mommy. And just taking quarters all day. It would just be on with one quarter, wrecking everybody. They got all their use out of the game. So, yeah, I mean, you know what these types of games are. You know, this is the four fathers to Marvel vs. Capcom and stuff like that. So, all right, we're getting high over here. We're almost done. All right, here is the North American version of Darkstalkers Revenge, Night Warriors. As you can see, Darkstalkers Revenge. They just, for whatever reason, I feel like they reversed it in the Japanese version, the name and subtitle. It's over here, but it's under a stack, so I can't look for it right now. And I got to figure out why my camera has this skip frame and keeps stopping every once in a while. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to break the stream, but at least the audio is still going. All right. It's getting harder to reach around. All right. One of my favorite games of all time. And there's a little story with this game. And that is the original Tomb Raider. This is the definitive version of Tomb Raider, the first one. One of the reasons being that the audio was much better in this version than the PlayStation version. And that had a lot to do with the fact that the Sega Saturn had a dedicated audio chip. That was one of the best things about the design of that console. It had a separate dedicated audio chip, so the sound in these Saturn games are really good with a halfway competent developer. So this is the version I always played. I never played the PlayStation version of Tomb Raider, but obviously the sequels didn't come out on Saturn, so I didn't play any of those. Tomb Raider 2 I had to play on Sony, and that one I believe is probably better than this one. I think it's a little better than the first one. But the developer of this game notoriously did not like Sony, and he wanted to make this exclusive to Sega, but because the Saturn failed so bad and the PlayStation was doing so well, he had to do what he had to do. So I don't know what his, maybe he used to work for Sony back in the day. He had some kind of beef with Sony, and he wanted to make this exclusive to the Saturn, but circumstances, they had to do what they had to do. So, but that's one of the reasons. Even with the way the Dreamcast did, the Dreamcast got what, 3 Tomb Raider games, and you'll see those in my Dreamcast collection. All right, well, we got 3 left. All right, let me see what you guys are saying. So I looked up Skeleton Warriors, and the camera is fantastic in that game. Oh yeah, great. Yeah, it's a great game. It's Retrofaction. Man, M2 needs to get cracking on some Sega Aegis Saturn games for the Switch. Yeah, I mean, that's one of my biggest gripes. Like, these games need to be on new consoles. And I know there's issues, like I said, Panzer Dragoon, they lost the source code. That's the word. But there's a lot of stuff on Saturn that's only on Saturn, and it's stuck. Like they say about the Wii U. It's stuck on the Wii U. Thank God it's on Switch. Well, that is truly the case for the Saturn, because those games are omega expensive to go back and play or go back and buy. All right, so Battle Arena Toshinden Remix. Now this is the fixed version, because back in the day we didn't have a way to download patches. So Battle Arena Toshinden it's not a good game. The first one, notoriously, this is the first one, but this is the remix version of it. It's slow and clunky. The original one. This is better, but it's not great. It's not much. It's not a ton better, but there is some fixes in here that makes it a little bit worth playing. But the character models and whatnot have been updated in this one. The speed and whatnot. The controls are tighter in this. So if you're gonna get Battle Arena Toshinden for your collection, get Remix, because as far as I'm concerned, the original one is unplayable. It's not very good. It's much like, I didn't even mention it, but Street Fighter. I may have to dig in here and find it. There it is. Same thing with Street Fighter Remix. The original Street Fighter 1, or Street Fighter, I said Street Fighter, Virtua Fighter Remix. The same thing that happened with Battle Arena Toshinden happened to Virtua Fighter, but this came first. So the original version of Virtua Fighter for Saturn was garbage. Like, they rushed it out. Saturn was notorious in its launch that they rushed it by like 5 or 6 months. It was supposed to come out in the fall, but they pushed it out during E3, and that pissed off a lot of developers because they thought they had time to get their games ready for launch. It pissed off retailers as well who weren't ready and weren't going to get enough copies of Saturn, enough units to sell. And so KB Toys, who's not around anymore, but they were big back then, KB Toys vowed to not ever sell Sega Saturn. These are the things that hurt the Sega Saturn. So KB Toys, which was a big toy store that sold video games and toys and stuff back in the 90s, they said because they got pissed off, they never sold Saturn. No Saturn games or consoles in the store. And so that hurt Sega Saturn sales, obviously. So that was one of the other things, because they were trying to rush and beat Sony to market. And I think they got like 100 think there was like 100,000 or something like that Saturn sold by the time PlayStation came out, and PlayStation outpaced that within like a month. In 1 month they already had more PlayStations than Sega Saturn. So it was just a waste of time. They should have never done it. And another thing that that's what it was. The thing that made Sega put out the 32X, because we were talking about that earlier, was, believe it or not, the Atari Jaguar. Yeah. Sega was afraid of Atari and their 64-bit Jaguar. So they rushed out. They needed a stopgap before they can put out the Saturn. And so they put out the 32X to compete with the Atari Jaguar, which was one of the biggest failures in console history. So Sega was making stupid rash decisions all over the place. And that's why they don't make hardware anymore, because they made great hardware when they did, but they made bad decisions. Shout out to KB Toys, says the Inglorious Bastards. Yeah, shout out to them. I used to love KB Toys. They used to have like these robotic things that were like, if you went to them in the mall, it was like, it was a big open walk-in, and they had like these like little robot things that would walk around on the little setup they had on a little table. I just remember those little not wind up, but they were like a little electronic robots that I remember that were really cool. Mackenzie Peters, I own an Atari Jaguar and I don't think it's that bad. No, it's not a bad console, but Atari had no money. They had no money when they dropped this Jaguar. They had no real developers. The problem with the Jaguar is the games. The hardware is solid. Some games are really good on it. Doom, for one. Somebody mentioned earlier Myst. I haven't played Myst, but I heard that was a good version. But Doom was probably the best console port. It was the best console port of Doom. Was on the Atari Jaguar. So it was a very capable console, and I'll talk about that at some point. But the controller was very comfortable, but it was a 2D controller. There was no stick, but it was a very comfortable controller to hold. I love how it looks. It is one of my favorite looking game consoles design-wise. I like how it looks. It looks great. It looks like a game console, and I love how it looks. But it was not gonna. If you had any sense in your brain, you should have known that Atari Jaguar was nothing that you needed to worry about. Because Atari, as bad as Sega was, Atari was worse when it came to like decision making. So that was just a bad decision for them to do that. Obviously, it didn't turn out well. All right, here's a North American copy of Fighting Vipers. Like I said, I have duplicates. Some came from Stalker, and some reasons I have some duplicates is because of Stalker. He would like you to think that, for whatever reasons, he wants you to think that I didn't know what a Saturn was or something before him. But I have my best friend in the whole world. He can totally vouch for me and how crazy I was about the Saturn. I basically talked him into buying one, but he bought one in a really terrible way. He bought one through Rent-A-Center. Are they even around anymore? So he rent to own one, and his Saturn ended up costing him like $700, which was a bad idea back when they were selling them for $200 with 3 games, because they were, the writing was on the wall. So they had the 3 free game system. So it was $200. He ended up paying close to $700 through Rent-A-Center for his. So but there's Fighting Vipers, like I said, North American copy. And here's another one of my hinge problems. So there you go with that. Real gamers up in here. I miss my Sega Saturn. You missed your Saturn? What happened to your Saturn, bro? I thought you had a Saturn. I know you had a Saturn because I remember you showing some stuff. Did you sell it? Video game her, unrelated. The air fryer I want is sold out. I can't remember which one I have. I love it. It works great. I'll look it up, and if you want to know what model it is or what one it is, I don't know which one you want, and for what reasons you might want it. But I have, yeah. This is a Hypnotoad. This is something from Twitter we touched on earlier. Air fryer is a godly machine that cooks your food, very healthy. And oh, life happened, so you had to sell it. I feel you, bro. I feel you. But yeah, air fryer is like a cooking. It's like a little cooker. It's a little fryer that will fry your food without all the, you know, over having to over grease it and all that stuff. Having to worry about all the oils in it. It's a really good little machine there. All right, are we down to the last one for this showing? Yes, we are, and it is the game that I would challenge anybody on right now to this day. Virtua Fighter 2. I learned everybody in this game. It won't take me long to get back into it and to relearn and remember everybody's moves, but I am godly at Virtua Fighter 2. I wish there was a way to play this online today. But who knows if it would even work as well because of lag and whatnot. But man, this is the fighting game I really got into, and of course it wasn't one of the most popular ones, but Virtua Fighter 2 was my game, man. I played the crap out of this game, and I learned, like I said, I learned almost everybody. Akira is that dude, and there he is there. Quick little note: Shenmue was supposed to be a Virtua Fighter RPG. It started off as an RPG game with Virtua Fighter characters in it, and so that's why Akira or Ryo and Shenmue looks a lot like Akira because they took Akira's character model and tweaked it a bit and created Ryo for Shenmue. There's some information for you if you didn't know that. But yeah, because I remember reading about, oh my God, they're making Virtua Fighter RPG. That's great. And it became Shenmue. Another thing that you may not know, Shenmue actually started on the Sega Saturn. They got pretty far into development with that game. Defo need a new Virtua Fighter with Ryo Hazuki and Landi in it. Oh man, that would be crazy, Adam. That would be crazy. Ryo Hazuki and Landi in it. That would be sick. I mean, that would be the full circle. That would be great. But yeah, I remember reading about Virtua Fighter RPG coming, and it became, like I said, it became Shenmue. But Shenmue had a pretty decent build, a really good looking build. Sega Saturn was a powerful console. The problem is it was hard to develop for it. Like I said, because the way it was set up, having the two CPUs, which was difficult to work with back then. Nobody, they were just getting into 3D programming, and so to have to do it through two CPUs, separate CPUs, was difficult. So, but Sega obviously, they knew their hardware, and they worked on it, and I'm sure you can look it up on YouTube. I did a video on it. If you want to find my video on Shenmue on Sega Saturn, do that. It looked really good on Sega Saturn, because the Sega Saturn was a beast, but it just never got, enough development on it, enough time on the market for people to really like tap into it. So for the 3D stuff, especially, but Shenmue looked really good. The facial animations, all that expressions were there on the Sega Saturn. Yeah, Sega Saturn. So Sega Saturn was a beastly console, and still is. But yeah, that is my collection. There you go. You guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I think I showed you all my hardware, at least. But yeah, let's see. Let me see if I'm missing anything. What the F is an air fryer? You don't know what an air fryer is, Hypnotoad? You must be young. You gotta be young, man. You don't know what an air fryer is. I'm bougie. I want the 7-in-1. Okay, so I don't have that one. But yeah, I have a smaller one. So, but I have a 4-person family. So it's enough to get all the meat I wanted at once. So that's how me and my wife did. We split it. I do meat, and then she does the the carb or whatever um, on the stove. So I don't need you know, well, you can't cook macaroni and cheese in it anyway, but it's for meats, and it does a really good job, and it's quick. Inkler bad as Jesus, $700 back then. That's like $1,000,000 today. Yeah, that's easily over $1,000 today. And but the thing is, you paid $10 or whatever, $20, and you took your Saturn home, so you didn't have to plop down that $200. And we both worked at the same place. We worked at a grocery store. We were bag boys. We bagged groceries, so we didn't have a ton of money. I think I made like $100 a week back then, 90 to $100 a week. My mom wanted to cut, so we kind of did what we did. He had an apartment. I didn't. I kind of had an apartment at the time, but not really. It was part of my mom's house, but it was a separate. Like I had my own bathroom, had my own kitchen and sink, all that stuff. Um, but he had an apartment, so he was already going through Rent-A-Center for like furniture and stuff, and so he already had an account. So he was just like, "Oh, they got a Sega Saturn there. You keep talking me into it," and he got it. So Hypnotoad is 50. Oh, my bad, Hypnotoad. So yeah, I mean you're a little older than me, so you should know what an air fryer is, man. I mean I know it's a newer device, but for us old folks, these are the things we care about and we look for. Um, Terrell, what's up? Dope ass collection. Thank you, my man. Like I said, there's at least 20 games, about 20 games I want to get before I'm completely happy with my Saturn collection. So I'll be working on it still. Um, it's one of the few collections I'm going to be working on that I'm not completely satisfied with. So it's my Saturn. What else? There might be a couple GameCube games. My Wii collection, I'm good. My Wii, I got everything I want. I have like 120 games for that. That's gonna be a good stream. My Wii U, I'm happy with. What else? Let me look down here. Give me some help. Xbox, original Xbox. There's some stuff I want there. 360, but we're talking maybe 15 to 20 games each of those consoles. So I'm pretty much happy as far as my retro stuff goes. I don't have a lot of my Super Nintendo, because that's when I was really trading stuff. Super Nintendo era, Sega Genesis, NES. My mom has the NES. She used to play games. She still does, but NES is where her cutoff goes. She don't really go past that. What games are you showing next stream? Next stream, glad you asked because I don't want to forget. Next stream will be GameCube. So we're going to come back to the Nintendo console. I want to kind of go back and forth. That way I don't bore you people who may not care as much about my non-Nintendo stuff. But this was I got the same amount of viewers as I had during my, what did I do? My, my Switch collection reveal. So that's great. I'm glad you guys, thank you for all joining. I hope you're entertaining. I think, even if you're not as in tune to these consoles, you should watch this kind of stuff because you may see stuff you like. And there's a lot of, I'm a big gaming historian. I like talking about the history of games. I know there's some stuff I wanted to talk about when it came to Saturn that I don't remember. But it was a good era for me as far as where I was mentally and physically and just, gaming wise. It was a really good gaming era. Saturn, Super Nintendo, or Saturn. Well, it's still Super Nintendo because I was playing Super Nintendo still heavily up until like 97, 98, and I kind of stopped as much on that system. But it was just a nice because you had this kind of circular. What am I looking for? Rotation of consoles that were still in the mix. I had my Genesis going. I still had my Super Nintendo, like I said, up until N64, Sega Saturn, those were all around the same time for me, and so it was a great time for me as a gamer, and you know, growth mentally as well outside of gaming. So I miss the days when people just talked games and the innards of games. Yeah, you know, I would like to do that more. And you know how I do. I like to edit it, you know, make a crazy video. But unfortunately, the way YouTube is now, I don't get the traction that I used to get. Like, you know, I wasn't getting huge numbers, but I would slowly see my numbers going up per video, and I don't see that anymore. So it's hard for me. Because it's not a money thing. If you're on YouTube, you want people to hear you. You want people to see you. That's the point. The money is, you know, good. I don't make barely anything, but you know, it's a good incentive. After a little while, maybe you'll have enough to buy a game here and there. At least on my level, I'm sure some of the other guys live off this stuff, so good for them. But I want to do that kind of stuff, but I can't justify the time it would take for me to spend making videos, you know, gaming historian style, the way I would like to make them. You know, that's why I really like this, and I'm glad this is a really cool way to do it, live streaming it, because I can interact with you guys as I'm going through my stuff, and it's not just me talking at you. You get to hear stories. This is stuff I wouldn't put in a video, like my little side stories and what I was doing at the time and all that stuff. So the '90s was dope, man. You know, for you younger cats, you know, for me it was the last great decade. You know, up till like mid 2000s, it was pretty cool as well. Um, you know, because I was in film school and whatnot, so that was a really like creative time for me. Like those were really good stuff. Real Gamer 27, my views are shit now. Everybody's is, man. Even if you were a big channel, your views drop significantly. It's just that the bigger channels were able to sustain it better. But you know, when I was, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 subscribers, I was getting 1, 2, 3,000 views a lot of times. Even one, I would be happy with. You know, I'm happy with whatever I get, obviously, but I would be, as far as like me producing more of the types of videos I like to make. You know, I would like to consistently get like 1,000 views, and I had no problem doing that back in the day. A lot of it had to do with like drama stuff as well. That doesn't fly as much anymore today, but yeah, that was just like a great era. 95 to 2005 was like beautiful gaming era. Because like I said, it came, it did, that was almost three different generations in that area there. So it was good stuff. But yeah, live streaming is the way to go, and Nia's talking about that now, because it's a motivating factor for me making a video. And what I can do is I can take snippets of this, and I can still go back and make, you know, a video and show footage. Now I can take this cut and take areas of this, because not everybody's going to come in after this and watch the whole thing. Some people do. A lot of people tell me, "Yeah, I love watching your stream. At work, I can listen, or you know, they just listen to parts of it throughout a day or a couple of days, and so they love that." But I've done it a couple of times already, where I'll take like an area, you know, a snippet, like a chunk, a 10-minute chunk, 15, 20-minute chunk of one of these live streams, and I'll put like video to it. So I might do that for this as well. I might do something like a Sega Saturn collection and just show me talking about it and edit around it, so it stays on the game stuff and not so much a side story. So I can still do that. So that works. Terrell, yeah, it's hard to do traditional videos anymore. Yeah, not only is it hard to do them, it's almost like, why do them? You know, like I don't want to completely not do them anymore, but my live streams at this point get more views, and like I said, I like the interaction with subscribers better, and that's because YouTube wants it that way. You know, you doing a live stream, you're doing 2, 3, 4 hours even. They can put multiple ads throughout that. They want 10 minutes plus. They want 10 minutes plus because that means they can do more than one commercial per video. If your video is under 10 minutes, they can't split it up and add extra ads. Like it's because it could be a music video. What if it's a music video? You're watching the music video, and then 2 minutes in, it cuts to a commercial. That totally disrupts the vibe of that video. So they know they can't do multiple ads unless you hit that 10-minute mark. And oh boy, you're doing a live stream? Beautiful. We can just keep dropping ads for people who come in after and watch big time. And that's not on us. Some people think we do that, but that's YouTube deciding where. I mean, you can go in manually and move those ads around, but you can't limit them. So YouTube really loves live streams, and that's why live streams get all the views now. And there's still some channels that do pretty big views as far as just single videos. It's mostly NewsTuber channels, but like traditional stuff that we all came up listening to and watching, just gamers talking about games and whatnot. Those channels don't do well at all. You gotta have a strong niche, Like I watched this one guy. I pay for premium YouTube Red. Get out of here, Cray. I hope you ain't doing that. Because you can skip the ads if you do that. I think that's why you do it. There's a better way to skip ads. I think, and it doesn't cost you anything. But anyway, there's a guy who was just kind of doing, one-off videos, talk about Nintendo. He would say, he would talk about his, he would do discussion videos talking about games coming in, he would touch on some news topics. He'd do a live stream here and there. And then he did this Animal Crossing video. I think his name's Nintendo Talk. He did an Animal Crossing video. Before that, he was about 2,000 subscribers, 2,300 subscribers. And, he would get, 400 to 800 views per video. But he started doing Animal Crossing videos, and his first Animal Crossing video was like 100,000 views. And then he's just like, oh, wait a minute. People like the Animal Crossing. So he kept doing Animal Crossing videos. He's over 50,000 subscribers now. And I'm talking about within a month and a half. So he found the algorithm, hit it, and he kept going with that. It's like, even me, like, I like Animal Crossing. I love Animal Crossing. But I can't just have an Animal Crossing channel. Like, I can't just talk about Animal Crossing and do Animal Crossing. That's going to get old for me. And you got to keep coming up with new ways to keep, because Animal Crossing the hype is going to die at some point, right? You're going to have to transition. And, but it's easier to transition when you have 50,000 subscribers than it is when you have 5,000. And you've had 5,000 for like a year and not really moving. So they take money from Super Chat. They should be paying me. I hear you on that. Bro, just use ad blocker. That's what it's called. Thank you, Terrell. There's ad blocker. You can get that. But, I guess there's benefits to YouTube Red or Premium or whatever it's called. So maybe he likes those benefits. I don't know. YouTube ain't getting my money. They don't give me enough. Let's see. Mackenzie. I'm trying to roll back because I don't want to miss anybody's questions. Mackenzie says, hey T, is the N64 still your most favorite console, or has your opinion changed since? My opinion has changed somewhat. Funnily enough, the Saturn was almost my favorite console of all time. But because of those things I talked about, all the games not coming here, that kind of stuff, it knocked it down. But N64 is still my favorite console of all time. Probably will always be. And it's only because at this point, it's because it had a plethora of just like industry groundbreaking new path forging games like Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time and Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye. Like, it's the only console. It's the console that brought me that. So to leave it now would be too hard, because it would be like me saying, oh, Michael Jordan is no longer the best player of all time. Some people may feel like he's not. I think those people are crazy, but time has gone by. People have come in and they've done great things as basketball players. Um, but it wasn't just about the 6 championships. It was about his killer mentality. He's a psycho. He would make up stories in his head to be upset with you, and that's the kind of like perseverance and crazy stuff that makes him the best to me. Not just the championships and the MVPs and all that stuff. That obviously adds to his resume and reason for why he's the best. But N64 is Michael Jordan in me. It didn't have everything. It didn't have everything, but what it did have, it was so good at 3D platformers. I was so ready for 3D platformers. At the time, it had the best. Racing games. I love racing games to this day. N64 had it had a whole lot of racing games and great racing games. It introduced me to, well, it didn't introduce me to FPSs, but a console FPS where it wasn't just about running in a room and shooting everything that was in that room, finding a key and moving on. The Doom style. It was the first console smart first person shooter, and GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. And these are my favorite games of all time. So it still has my favorite games of all time. It's the system with the most favorite games of all time for me. So that's why, unless another system comes along that does that's groundbreaking, just don't see it happening with the way technology moves today. That's why the N64 is still my favorite. And when we get to that video, that's probably going to be a 4-hour stream. Because, I have like 120 games. So not much more than my Switch console. But I can talk about a lot of those games a lot. So I can see it going on for a while. But yeah, it's still my favorite console of all time. It's going to be hard to, even like Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is one of the best games of all time to me. One of the best Zelda games of all time. But it just can't unseat Ocarina of Time for me, because there's a lot of factors into that game for me. Timing, where I was mentally in gaming, how I was just like read everything I could about the game. I was just psycho about it. And it was just a perfect game to me when it came out. It has flaws today, but when that game came out, it was flawless. It was a perfect game, as perfect as the game could be. So it's going to be hard to top that. It's the way Zelda. It was the exact replica of what I expected from Zelda in 3D, and not many companies can do that outside of Nintendo. So, and a lot of people struggled. Sega certainly struggled bringing Sonic to 3D. I still don't think they got him right at this point. We're talking 25 years later. They've had a 3D console, and they, to work with, and they still haven't really solved Sonic in 3D, as far as I'm concerned. Not nearly as well as Mario's been solved. So, Rayman 2. That game was on other consoles, but the N64 was my 3D platformer console. It was my shooter console. It wasn't just it wasn't just GoldenEye, but it was also Turok. The Turok games were great on N64. Quake, Duke Nukem, I loved them. It was my favorite 3D platformer. It was my favorite action adventure console. Like, it had all these great, groundbreaking, still best of list games on one console. And so it lacked RPGs, it lacked all these other things, but what it was so great at. I was so satisfied with that console. It's just gonna be hard to match it. So, yep. Your recent skit was life. Thank you, Nia. You were the inspiration for it. I talked about that whole situation of, with everything going on in the world today and the trying times we live in. And you said I should do a video on that. And I was like, yeah. See, that's why I miss you guys making videos, and it's hard for me to watch everybody's live stream because they're so long. But um, you guys also motivate me to make the videos I make. The community motivates me. So with the community in the state it's in, it's just like, it's hard for me to be motivated to make stuff like that. But every once in a while, I'll still pop up with something like that. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Why y'all super chat? Just people donate through Streamlabs. I don't have time to figure that stuff out, Terrell. If you want to tell me how to do that, great. Because I don't like YouTube getting a cent. Uh, Not because I'm greedy. I just don't like YouTube in the way it is right now. So I don't like them getting any money from what I do. But obviously they get it through ads and whatnot. But donations, I don't want them to have any of that. They don't deserve it. So, but if you want to talk to me on how to do that, Terrell, hook me up because I'm not gonna go look it up myself. I don't honestly care enough. But the Saturn, great RPGs and fighting games. Yeah, the Saturn had great RPGs. I just don't have a lot of them because they're expensive to this day. So, and they didn't put a lot out in North America, so they're very rare. Uh, Cruising USA and Cruising World. Oh my gosh, love Cruising USA. Cruising the world. Great stuff. Great soundtrack. Love the cruising games. Love them in the arcades and love them on N64. Maybe we need to collaborate our channels so we can send subs to each other or just something to think about. Yeah, we need to do that. Like, we certainly need to do that because I know you have subs who don't watch me and vice versa. So, on our little small side, we can help each other out and gain more through that. I'm down for that. I'm always down for that. So, Retrofaction, I just picked up Mega Man 64. Mega Man 64, which is Mega Man Legends. If you didn't know, that was the first one. 64 didn't get Mega Man Legends 2 the way PlayStation did, but I have Mega Man Legends or Mega Man 64, and I love it. San Francisco Rush was great on N64, yes. What's the console that still impresses you to this day out of all the consoles you've had? I mean, they all impressed me. My tops are Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, N64. Those are my top three probably, and mostly because of what they did for the time they were out, but also for the potential they never got to achieve. Like N64, they had some games I think they still could have made that didn't come, but more so Sega Saturn and Sega Dreamcast. They were impressive pieces of hardware at their time, and they ended too quickly, and so there's always that wanting for more that it never got. So, Bruce Kent, two places at once to me. You're a time traveler. Missing you on that. Mackenzie, I wish Mega Man Legends 3 was never canceled. Yeah, it sucked because we got to see what it looked like, right? Wasn't there like early builds of it for 3DS? And yeah, Capcom, if you want to get me back, that's one way to do it. Mega Man Legends 3. Exclusive for Switch now. Doesn't have to be exclusive, but it should definitely be on Switch. But that's how you bring me back into the fold, Capcom. Mega Man Legends 3. Make it happen. Pokemon Snap. Listen to me. Pokemon Snap is still the only Pokemon game I've played. It's so popular. I don't have my... No, it's not close enough. I showed that in a video, Pokemon Snap. Because you could take pictures in the game, and then Nintendo had these kiosks at like Blockbuster and different places where you could print out the picture of your Pokemon that you took in the game. So cool. That's another reason the N64 is so great to me. I didn't even talk about that part, but I'll talk about that in the N64, my N64 collection video, which I already have if you want to go see my collection, I already have a set of videos showing my entire collection. But I'll do a live one because it's pretty cool. But yeah, like the transfer pack, mind blowing. The Game Boy camera, they never got to use the Game Boy camera the way they wanted to on Perfect Dark and whatnot. Like you can put your own face in the game using the Game Boy camera through the transfer pack. Um, they say it was technical issues. No, I think they later told the truth about it. Columbine happened, and so they were worried about kids putting their faces on characters and shooting them. And it was just a really sensitive time, and I totally get that. But I wish that was a thing that worked. But yeah, they were thinking about that. The N64 Double D, Double D, N64 DD disc drive that came out in Japan that I was waiting for and salivating for, and it's still one of my heartaches today that we never got that in North America, and it's super expensive to collect for the Japanese one now. Um, but what that thing was doing, where you can do a lot of stuff you're doing now, way back then, F Zero X on 64D DD, you could it hooked up to the internet. It had a modem, and you could make your own tracks on F Zero, and you can upload them for people to play. And this was in 1998, so it was such a forward-thinking console, and it had and the Rumble Pack. The Rumble Pack was just game changer. Everybody still uses the Rumble Pack right now. Everybody uses Z targeting to some extent right now, where you can target a character and your character follows them. If you lock on was not a thing before Ocarina of Time. So these are things that came out, and they're still happening today. That we use. Rumble, obviously, every controller has force feedback in it. That started with the N64. It was the first console. No, I was gonna say to upgrade the hardware, but that would be the Sega Saturn. The Saturn had the 4 MB expansion. Was it 4 MB? Same as N64. I believe it was 4 MB. So yeah, it was just a forward-thinking, great console with so much stuff. What happened to the Juices Loose? Nothing happened. We do it every week. We still have a good following on it. Real Gamer. If you go to Juice's channel, or yeah, just go down in my description. I think it's in the description for my live streams as well. Just go to his channel and subscribe. We're on every week, Monday, 7 p.m. We're always there. Double D. LOL. Can't relate. You're funny, Nia. Mackenzie, did you know Nintendo at one point stopped funding for GoldenEye on N64? It was falling behind schedule. Yes, I do know that. Yes. It was all part of, that whole story about the multiplayer, which was probably the most important aspect of that game. It wasn't probably, it was. The single player was amazing in the game, but the multiplayer was what put it over the top for everybody. It would have people in dorm rooms, 4 players on one console, split screen playing that game for hours and hours through the night. I used to do it myself. Had 3 friends over playing GoldenEye, drinking, playing, just having a great time. They added that on. They had that month. I think they took a month. They didn't even tell Nintendo they were doing it. Probably because Nintendo wouldn't have approved it because of, like you were saying, the stopping of the funding and all that stuff. Because it was a weird development cycle with GoldenEye. Because it started on Super Nintendo. It was just going to be like a side-scrolling James Bond game. Because the movie came out in 95. The game didn't come out until 97 because they wanted to wait for the new hardware and really push it. And at one point, GoldenEye 007 for N64 was going to be an on-rail shooter. And you still have aspects of that in the game. There's still... I love the fact that there's all this history that's still in the game. There's still little assets and whatnot in that game. As far as the FPS stuff, you got that... Well, on rails shooting stuff. You got that with like the tank mission, the train mission started off as an on rails thing, and I think that's when they decided they needed to refocus and change it. The dam, the first level, the dam. If you go to the backside Where the waterfront is and the mountain over there. You can see all the way over there. There's a dock and another little room or whatever, and that was going to be more stuff, but they had to cut that off, so you didn't get that part of the game. But yeah, that game had a pretty cool history, rough development cycle. But look what happened at the end. It's one of Nintendo 64's biggest games, best games. Great stuff. So um, man, I forgot about that. LOL. Missing something there. I hated GoldenEye because my cousins used to body me. Yeah, yeah. You had to know what you were doing in GoldenEye. I call odd job. Mackenzie. I would have been an infant during the N64's heyday, so it was weird to me playing game like GoldenEye, N64. Yeah, I mean, I hear people talk about that, because I mean, it's not easy to go back to that way of FPS for a lot of people. For me, it's not hard because that's how I started. The N64 controller made a lot of sense to me as a PC shooting fan because it was like mouse and keyboard. Here's your mouse, and my stick still works pretty well. That sounded like something sexual, but and it's true. But yeah, it's really good still. It's really snappy. But the keyboard was these sticks or these buttons. So you strafe left and right, look up and down, just like on a keyboard where you have left and right, up and down arrow. And this was perfect for me. So, I look around with this, strafe left, strafe right, look up, look down, and there was auto targeting too. So you didn't have to, you can hit the R button here, and you can aim. There was different control scheme for this. You hit the R button here, and you could like focus on something. You can aim then. The little reticle will show up, and then you can aim your fire or whatever. So this was perfect for me. But I can understand somebody coming from the dual, what do you call it, dual analog setup for FPSs, which is not my favorite. I prefer not motion. What is it called? I prefer motion controls, especially during the N64 or the Nintendo Wii. But now we have gyro aiming, which I love. To me, that's better than dual analog. I never really liked dual analog, but it is what it is. So, all right, I got to get out of here. But let me finish up with you. What you guys are saying. I was talking that Juices Loose podcast. I forgot y'all still do it. Oh yeah, we still do it. Real Gamer. I know what you were talking about. I said, yeah, we still do it. It's on his channel. So if you're subscribed, just subscribe to him and you'll get our podcast every Monday. We go live. Multiplayer with that horrible frame rate. How do you guys survive? Well, I mean, again, Mackenzie, that was just the way. On Super Nintendo, you had the flickering. When the frame rate, when too much stuff was going on, you had that flickering stuff. You just learned how to deal with it. It wasn't any pouting. It wasn't any crying or any of that stuff. You just dealt with it. You had a certain amount of games, a lot of us. We didn't have 10,000 games to play. You just dealt with it. That's, dare I say, we were a little tougher back then. But that you just learned how to deal with it. Yeah, the frame rate was, I think it dropped sub 20 sometimes, but you learned how to play the game that way. It wasn't like, oh my God, I never sat there and was like, oh my God, this frame rate is killing me. I can't deal with it. Never once did that bother me in those days. And now I can go back to it and it still doesn't bother me because that's, what I remember playing. So I adjust to that very well. So I can understand not being able to do that as a young person trying to go back to play N64. But there are a lot of games on the N64 that are still very playable. Outside of the shooters, the racing games are, the 3D platformers are still very playable. Action adventure games are still very playable. So some games didn't age well because people grew up in different eras and can't deal with those frame rates. And I understand that. I totally get it. But it doesn't bother me. Even to this day, I have Turok 1 and 2 on my Switch, and I'd still rather just play it on my N64 because, the muscle memory I have with this controller, you know, is just better for me. Same goes with Banjo Kazooie. I have better options for Banjo Kazooie. So, but I'm not going to. I don't. I played the Rare Replay one for a little bit, and I would just rather play 64. So, hey T, what game collection are you going to do next? Dreamcast? No, I'm trying to split it, so I won't do a Sega console. I'm gonna jump back on Nintendo. I mentioned earlier, GameCube will be next. I have a pretty good GameCube collection. You guys, I think you really like that one. As much as I rag the GameCube, I don't rag the GameCube for what it is. I just rag it for how Nintendo didn't do it. Like it just didn't serve it well. Oh my gosh, Mackenzie, stop with the donations. I totally appreciate it though. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to judge the frame. No, it's fine. It's just amazing how games have evolved and how expectations have changed. No, it's fine. You're right. The frame rate was terrible. But we didn't know. That's the difference. We didn't know it was terrible. I have, Terminator Juice. We talked about this a couple times. He says he couldn't deal with it even back then, but I didn't know anybody else that felt that way. Like it was just fine. I would play with my friends, 3 of us, 4 all together. We played GoldenEye, and it just we never talked about it. It never bothered us in that way. We never said, "Oh man, I got killed because of the frame rate drop." We didn't talk about that stuff. It was just the way it was. Now you can go back and say, "Oh yeah, that stuff doesn't look good," and I get it. But for someone who grew up with it, it doesn't bother me even to this day. But I can see where it would bother somebody who's not used to that. If you started off with GameCube, a lot of those games are 60 frames even on GameCube. It's sad that we can't get that consistently today. But GameCube had a ton of 60 frame games, and at the lowest, you had 30 frame. Even the worst developers on GameCube and even Xbox, PlayStation not as much, but their games didn't drop below 30 frames. So, I totally saw the jump. I saw the leap, especially when I got Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader. Like when I got that game home, and I saw that 60 frames with those visuals, that was one of the problems with the GameCube for me. No other game really achieved that kind of mind-blowing thing after that. Or Factor 5, those guys were just geniuses. But yeah, so I don't apologize for the frame rate comment. I understand. I'm not mad. It doesn't bother me. You're right. I totally get it. I'm just saying from my perspective, how I grew up with games, it doesn't bother me. But I get it why it would bother you. I get why using this controller would bother you. I don't get why anybody who grew up with this talks that mess, because I see people do that. But, play 3D games, you hold it like this. 2D games, you hold it like this. It was no issue. No issue. Only issue is that this stick will wear. There was some high failure rate on this. But mine works pretty well, as you can see. But even they do have new, modern controllers for the N64. So you can buy, I think it's Retro Fighter Brawler 64 or something, and you can play a traditional controller. Well, not traditional. It's still like this, but it's not this 3-prong thing, which would probably confuse some people today. You can buy a modern controller with a modern joystick over here, and your D-pad's down here. And you can play those retro games today. So, you don't have as much issue. So, all right. So I got to get out of here. Let's see. I'm going to say these last few comments and I'm going to bounce. I didn't know the frame. What is this? Oh, I lost it. I didn't even know what frame rates were back then. Same thing here. I didn't know what a frame rate was. No, gaming magazines didn't talk about it back then. They would say once in a while flicker, but nobody talked about frame rates back then. There was no, oh, this is 30 frames or this is 60. We didn't talk about that back then. So I feel bad for the generation who didn't grow up with 8-bit, 16-bit games. Yeah, me too. But I feel like they still appreciate them, younger gamers, because these 2D games still come out and they still do really well. Hollow Knight and stuff like that. So it's not just us old folks playing that. You younger guys and girls are really enjoying 2D games. So you know, that's cool. And it's not. I mean, you're talking to 8-bit and 16-bit. Obviously, it's different still, but that's a good homage to that era. The you know, especially in games like my gosh, what's the Contra-like game that I really love on Switch that I can't remember the name. So there's a lot of homage games coming out based on those games we grew up with in 8-bit and 16-bit era that younger games like and get to play. Shovel Knight, Shovel Knight was a huge success, and it's that's where its roots is. It's 8-bit and 16-bit era. So I'm out. Love the Geode. I'm not saying that right. I know I'm not. Bruce. All right, Bruce. If you're not here, peace out to you. Nia, I was one of the nerds who actually played and enjoyed Mario is Missing. So LOL. Mario is Missing. Good stuff. Super Nintendo. Back in the days, games were so fire you didn't care. Yeah, like even the bad games. Like I had a game, Terminator 2, for Super Nintendo. Not a good game. Not LGN. Not a good game. But you know what? It was one of the few games I had at the time, and I played the hell out of it, and I got good at it, and I beat it. And it was so satisfying. The ending wasn't satisfying, but it was satisfying to beat that hard-ass game. And it was hard. It wasn't hard in the traditional sense. It's just, a tough game. It was hard because of the mechanics of the game. It wasn't very well made. But I got good, son, and I beat it. And it's to this day, it's still one of my favorite games, even though it's not that great. My N64 stick was so limp. A lot of people's are. All right, T, have a great night, man. Looking forward to the GameCube stream. Thank you, Gaming for Years. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you. Mackenzie, I love my 2D games on NES, SNES, Genesis, Jaguar, and Saturn. So many awesome games. Totally agree. Mercenary Kings. Mercenary Kings. What was that on? I know this. Mercenary Kings. Mercenary Kings. I feel like I just saw it. Anyway, I can't remember. But anyway, thank you guys and gals for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the stream. I love my Sega Saturn. It's one of my top 5 gaming consoles of all time. Even though it, like I said, didn't sell well. That doesn't matter to me. It matters my experience on the console. That's why I love the Wii U. That's why I love Sega Saturn. That's why I love Sega Dreamcast. So it doesn't matter how well it did or any of that stuff. So, but yeah, had a great time, and now I got to put all this stuff up. That's the sucky part. But I'm glad to be able to share this with you guys. It'll most likely be Wednesday. It was supposed to be Wednesday for this stream. Well, stuff got in the way. But GameCube should be next Wednesday, same time. So I look forward to having you guys. Hopefully all of you can join again and contribute to the chat. Good stuff. Good night. It's past midnight. It's half past midnight. So thank you all again. And I'll see you fools next time. Peace out. This is going to be awkward because I'm not ready to get out. But peace.